Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started with our public speak out portion of our meeting. We have 16 speakers on the list. I'm going to try to get to everyone in the interest of time, so everyone has an opportunity to speak. You'll be given about a minute and a half to address the council. The first person on the list is Rhonda Latney. One more time, Rhonda Latney. Is she here? All right, next person on the list, Karen Ford. Is Karen Ford here? William, looks like Blader. Blatch. Is there William? Sir William Blatch. Marshall Moriarty.
Hi, my name is Richard Greenberg. Marshall Moriarty was unable to be here tonight, and he's asked me to appear in his stead in opposition to the council ratifying or endorsing the collective bargaining agreements for Local 648 and the Chiefs Association. These agreements are an attempt to end-run the long-standing residency requirements. This contract attempts to rescue the non-complying firemen from the consequences of their actions. I, as a resident of the city of Springfield, beg you not to do that. My house in Springfield is worth perhaps a third of what it would be one step over the line in East Longmeadow or Wilbraham or Longmeadow. Why? Because people don't want to live in the city of Springfield. Do they not want to live in the city of Springfield for valid reasons which members of this council would endorse? I doubt it. This contract has been negotiated on behalf of the city by someone who lives in Ludlow. Does that make any sense? Why is it that we want to forgive people for failing to live by the promises they made when they accepted promotions in the city of Springfield's fire department? I don't know what that is. I, as a citizen, hope, and someone, by the way, who lives in the city and is able to vote for members of this council, unlike the people who live elsewhere, ask that you not do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person on the list, Michael Ann Busey. Is Michael Ann here? Idalia Diaz. Idalia Diaz. Maria Rodriguez. Marie Rodriguez. Is Marie Rodriguez here? Idalia. Go ahead.
Buenas noches. Mi nombre es Idalia Díaz.
Good evening, my name is Idalia Diaz.
Estoy aquí porque creo que es importante que se sepa que nosotros somos una comunidad bastante grande e importante también.
I'm here because I want to let you guys know that my community is a big community and it's important too.
Una de las cosas más que quisiera tocar es sobre cómo nosotros nos sentimos de inseguros a veces cuando llamamos a la policía en caso de que haya un crimen o reportar algo muy importante con nuestras familias.
One of the things that I want to highlight is how we feel when we had to report a crime or something happened to our family.
Muchas veces cuando llega la policía a las casas, primero les preguntan si tienen un seguro social para poder tomar su declaración.
Many times when the police come to our home, they ask you for Social Security to be able to get your declaration.
Y yo creo que eso no es justo porque todos tenemos derechos.
I don't think it's fair because we all have rights.
Nuestra comunidad es igual de importante, trabajadora, que viene a buscar un mejor futuro para nuestra familia.
Our community is important, and they come here just to get a better future for our family.
Y de igual manera, pues pedimos que se nos respeten nuestros derechos.
And the same way, we ask them to just have respect for our rights.
Y también somos personas que pagamos taxes, que contribuimos a esta ciudad,
We are people who pay taxes and contribute to the city,
aún no teniendo un documento legal en este país.
even when we don't have a legal document in this country.
Y yo creo que para todos debe de haber una igualdad, especialmente a los más vulnerables.
I think there should be equality for all of us, especially for those most vulnerable.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bob McCarroll.
Good evening, Bob McCarroll, 96 Elliott Street. I'm here talking about rehabilitation incentives. Last January, this council passed an amendment to the ordinance to preserve historically significant buildings to encourage offering rehabilitation incentives equal to or greater than the cost of demolition of a building. Recently, the city issued a request for proposal for the tax foreclosed, vacant, deteriorated historic building at 135-141 Lyman Street, with no incentives. No proposals were received. This building has been in municipal possession since foreclosure in September of 2009. Over those nearly 8 years, as far as I know, no steps have been made to secure the building from water penetration. No inspection was made following the gas blast, which occurred 425 feet away, to determine if there was any damage to the city-owned building and to look for money from Columbia Gas to renovate it. The building is now in worse condition than when the city acquired it almost 8 years ago. Probably the city will be allowed to deteriorate to the point where the building commissioner condemns it. The cost of demolishing this 6-story, 48,000 square foot building may be upwards of $200,000, and you will create a lot of 7,527 feet. That's the size of a single-family house lot in Residence A. So what I wanted to bring to your attention is we're in the budgetary process now, and I would hope the council is mindful of exploring opportunities that could be used to be put into the budget so we have some rehabilitation expenses, incentives when those vacant, deteriorated historic buildings arise. So, for example, the proposed community development block grant budget, which comes to you, but the proposed budget has eliminated what small amount of money was carried as incentives to help vacant, deteriorated, tax foreclosed buildings. Over the last 5 or 6 years, there's been a small pot of $100,000 to $150,000. It has been used to fix vacant, deteriorated, tax foreclosed houses in McKnight, in Metro Center, in Maple High Six Corners. That, at least in the draft budget, was zeroed out. So where we had incentives in the past, ain't no incentives beginning in July. The other thing I would suggest you consider is the tax title custodian's budget should be adequately funded so that tax foreclosed buildings can be secured from the weather and vandals while they're awaiting disposition. Because not only is this Lyman Street building now in worse condition, the city just put out for requests for proposals a vacant modernist house on Byers Street with no proposals. That building they'd owned for 10 years It's had leaks for years. The condition of the building is now far worse condition than when the city acquired it. So I'm hoping that you'll be thinking of how we can come up with rehab incentives in the upcoming year budget. And I've brought a written thing with a little thing, a picture of the building in case anyone wants to. I'll leave it with Anthony.
Thank you. Our next speaker on the list is Harris Freeman. Harris Freeman. Jamie Santiago.
So, thank you for this opportunity that I want to thank Adam Gomez for putting forth the initiative of aiding our immigrant population. I definitely see his parents' fighting spirit inside of him, so I thank you for that. In Proverbs, it's a Proverbs 3:27 says, "Do not withhold good from those whom it is due when it is your power to act." This proverb teaches us that with great power comes great responsibility. Thus, if I have the ability to act, then I should act, and we should act. I have been fortunate to work with the immigration community for several years through my church, various local agencies in which I consult with, and through my private practice in which I work as a licensed mental health therapist, a marriage and family counselor, and also as a licensed minister. Recently in our church, one of our members was affected by ICE, and he was detained by ICE for a traffic violation, driving without a license. $8,000 later of a bail that was imposed on him by our government, he was freed. That's a lot of money, especially when others who commit more serious crimes receive less bail money or bail amounts. In Galatians, it teaches us to carry each other's burdens. I've gotten to know this community, the immigrant community, and through my work with them. And there are many things that do set us apart. One thing I know is I don't have to worry about seeing my child after I send him to school. They do. I don't have to worry about picking up a prescription at the local pharmacy to take care of one of my family members, but they do. I don't have to worry about being stopped on my daily commute, but they do. I don't have to worry about going to college or church or shopping or eating or in a restaurant. They do. Each night and day, they worry because they go out, but they don't know if they're going to come back. Or they can be sitting down watching TV and somebody can come knocking on their door and be pulled and be taken away from their home and their children. They worry about getting picked up by ICE and taking their children, their health. They worry more about ICE and taking care of their health, taking care of their families, and taking care of their children. All they care about is making sure that their families are whole. And we have the ability to do something, and yet we're choosing to do something different. Once again, I remind you, with great power come great responsibilities. In Hebrews, it teaches us, do not forget to do good and to share with others. I want to share the freedom that I received in this country. I want to share the protection that I receive daily. I want to share my ability to dream with others. I want to share my ability to care for my family with them as well. I want to share my hope with others. I want to share my God with others. Great love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friend. I ask the city of Springfield to allow our immigrant community to live in peace and let ICE do ICE. Our officers are not deportation police. They work to protect our city, not carry out political agendas. We need to be able to trust and work with our police department. Thus, political agendas do not foster such a relationship. I need to call the police when a crime occurs, not when the immigrant leaves their home. I need to call the police when an accident occurs, not when an immigrant is spotted picking up the children from school. Overall, I call the police not to report immigration movements, but to report an emergency. I am confident that our police department is doing all they can to care for all of us, including the immigrant community. Thus, as I said before, let ICE do ICE. I encourage our police officers to continue protecting our community, to continue being vigilant on crime, and not turn their energy on fulfilling political agendas. You are our police officers, our guardians, not puppets being manipulated to fulfill false narratives, creating social injustice. Thank you.
We have about 10 minutes left until the start of our regular meeting. Please keep your comments to a minute and a half each. Next person on the list is Odalis.
Mi nombre es Odalis Borrayes, vivo en Webster Street, Springfield. Yo soy ciudadana de los Estados Unidos, pero hija de dos padres y documentados.
My name is Jodalis Borrayes. I live on Webster Street in Springfield. I'm a U.S. citizen, but my parents are undocumented.
Nuestra comunidad inmigrante vive con miedo de ser deportados y en el trabajo muchos de nosotros somos amenazados y maltratados por los patrones.
The immigrant community lives with the fear of being deported, and we suffer many abuses at work. We are often treated badly by our employers.
Por ejemplo, mi mamá estuvo trabajando piscando tomate en Florida. Es un trabajo muy duro, donde hay que correr todo el día. Un día, al tratar de subir al troque, porque se iban a trabajar a otro lado, se cayó. Tenía 6 meses de embarazo. Se cayó del troque y el patrón le gritó que tenía que levantarse o iba a pasarle el troque encima de ella.
For example, my mother worked picking tomatoes in Florida. This is a very hard job. You have to run all day long. One day, she had to get on a truck that was taking the workers somewhere else, and she fell. She was 6 months pregnant. She fell on the ground, and her boss yelled at her and told her to get up or he would run her over.
Ella empezó a sentir dolor, pero siguió trabajando. El jefe se dio cuenta, pero ella estaba mal, y le amenazó que si decía algo iba a llamar a inmigración. Y él le dijo lo mismo a todas las personas que fueron testigos. Esa misma noche, ella tuvo el bebé prematuramente.
She was in pain, and her boss noticed and threatened her and told her that if she said anything, he would call immigration. He said the same thing to other people who had seen her fall. That same night, she had her baby prematurely.
Esto es muy común para nosotros. Todos sufrimos con este tipo de abuso. No somos criminales, muchas veces somos víctimas del crimen. Necesitamos poder acudir a la policía y no tener miedo porque la policía está trabajando con la migración.
This kind of abuse is common in our communities. We all experience this. We are not criminals. Instead, we are often the victims of crimes. We should not be afraid to go to the police out of the fear that they are working with immigration.
Pedimos su apoyo y gracias por escucharme.
We ask for your support and thank you for listening to me.
Luis Perez.
So Luis was really hoping to make it tonight, but he was stuck at work, and so he asked that I read this instead. My name is Luis Perez. I live on Brightwood Avenue in Springfield. I've lived here for about 12 years. Because I grew up in Mexico in a poor family, I had to leave school when I was 12 years old to work with my father, cultivating coffee. I came to the U.S. about 15 years ago so I could put my 5 children through school. I wanted them to have opportunities that I did not have. Most, if not all, immigrants who come to the U.S. by walking over the border like I did come to support their families. We work in the hardest jobs for very low pay. We are routinely exploited because the bosses know that we don't have papers. In Massachusetts, I've worked at local nurseries and at tobacco and vegetable farms. Immigrants here in the Valley work as many hours as we can get, 7 days a week if we can. We work in fields, in restaurants, we clean rooms and hotels, and we mow your lawns. Contrary to what uninformed people say, undocumented immigrants are not eligible for help from the state. We are not criminals. We are workers. I ask you to put yourself in the place of a father who is detained, who has to hear his children say, "Please don't take my father." A child destroyed thinking he won't see his mother or father for years. We ask you to think what it would be like and what it would be like to be separated from your own children. We ask your support, and we ask the city of Springfield not to allow police to collaborate with immigration, because immigrants are victims of crimes just like everyone else, and we need to be able to go to the police for help. Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa Sanchez. Teresa Sanchez? Is she here? Is Teresa here? Marty Nathan.
I think Jorge wanted to add something in the place of Teresa, who she knows.
She's my aunt.
She's her aunt. No, she can hear.
Muchas veces a muchas personas inmigrantes les pasa que no tienen cómo acudir a la policía para reportar un robo.
To many immigrant people, it happens that they're not able to go to the police to report a crime
Porque simplemente les dicen que no tienen pruebas o les dicen que no tienen cómo identificarse.
because they simply say, oh, you don't have enough proof, or you don't have a way to identify yourself to us.
Esto ha pasado algunas veces en Massachusetts y nadie nos pone importancia.
This has happened various times in Massachusetts, but nobody thinks of it with much importance.
Han pasado más de 3 veces aquí y nadie nos pone importancia por el simple hecho de ser inmigrantes o tener un color inmigrante.
This has happened 3 times in Massachusetts, but no one is paying attention because it's happening to the immigrant community, if we're having people of color in the immigrant community.
Lo hemos visto no solamente aquí, sino en California. Y pido por favor nos demos cuenta que tal vez nuestro color es diferente, pero para Dios no hay inigualdad.
It's happened also in California and many other times. Say the last thing again.
Pero para Dios no hay inigualdad porque para Él todos somos hijos de Dios.
For God, there is no inequality because we are all children of God.
Y si vemos, el primer inmigrante aquí fue Dios.
And if we think the first immigrant here was God,
Y creo que vernos y decir que todos somos de diferentes color, pero hijos de un solo Dios.
if we think about it, all of us here have different colors, but we are all children of God.
Y tal vez podrían llamarnos criminantes, pero los criminales realmente son los que nos atacan porque somos un blanco fácil para robar o decirnos muchas cosas.
I'm sorry.
Sometimes we are... ¿Cómo se dice presa fácil? ¿Cómo? Somos una presa fácil para las personas.
We're easy targets for people.
We are target for people. We're gonna try to tell something to the people, but we can't. Like me, I don't know English, but I will try. By my family. My family can say something because they say, you are not with documents. You need to stop. You can work because you don't have the documents. I have one family, and I don't want to see my mom with another person who take her hand and say, you need to go to your country because you are here illegal. Sometimes, when I wake up, I say, what happened today? I can't live like that. Because I have my sister, she is disability. What happened? The last time that my mom is not with me, I feel that I don't have a life because nobody put attention what happened with my sister. Nobody want to tell to us, oh, we can tell to you what happened because you are illegal, you don't have how to pay the doctors, you don't know how to act, you don't know how to tell to the people if you don't talk English. That's only not happen here. That's happening in the school, bullying, because you don't talk English. In the work, all this happen all the time, and nobody knows that. Please, look more than your eyes, because you know if you happen something like that by your color. In my country, nobody tell to you you are immigrant because they say you are our family. In my country, they give the life for another people. It doesn't matter if your color is different. But look to us. We are different color, but I can give my life for another people if they need it. Thank you.
All right, the time is now 7 o'clock. I'm going to allow the final 2 speakers 1 minute each to speak. The next person on the list is Rosa Clase.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rosa Clase. I live in Springfield and 13 Quincy Street. I'm taxpayer in board, and I'm member Fire and Valley Project. I come here tonight to talk about the importance from the community, for the community and the police working together. The police are resource for the community and should be available to all of us, especially to those most vulnerable in our community, regardless of immigration status. The immigrant community is under attack, and our families are being brutally destroyed and unprotected. It's not fair that members of our community are the target of discrimination and crime for being undocumented. And that out fear, they feel they can call the police, that our immigrant neighbors are attacked and don't feel they have the right to report the crime. What kind of message are we sending to the most vulnerable community here? We have to let our friends and neighbors know they have our support and that we all have to be part of making our city safe for everyone. This resolution has my support, and thank you. And if you know are Indian American, you are immigrant too. Thank you.
Our final speaker is Kindle Cummings.
Sorry,
1 minute.
You had called on Marty Nathan earlier? You had called on Marty Nathan?
I just would like to, Marty Nathan, I was on the list and you called me.
I called you earlier and you didn't come to the microphone.
No, another one spoke, and I would just like to say 30 seconds. I'm a physician at Brightwood Community Health Center, and this is a public health issue. The treatment of immigrants in our community, if they are afraid to go out to the doctor, to the pharmacy, to take their kids to schools, if their families are broken up because of police collusion with ICE, then the community as a whole suffers, and we're talking about the health of the community. I beg you, I plead with you, please support Councilman Gomez's resolution. Thank you.
Kindle, 1 minute, please.
Hi, my name is Kindle Cummings Akers. I live at 142 Naismith Street in Ward 2. I'm a member of Local 1199 SCIU, and I'm a member of the Mount Calvary Baptist Church. The Springfield that I live in, and the Springfield I want my children and grandchildren to inherit, is one that is welcoming of all families and where everyone feels safe. When immigrant families feel excluded, and especially when they fear interacting with a local police, this makes us all feel unsafe. We need those families to feel a part of the Springfield and feel safe and appreciated as they contribute so much more. As a healthcare worker, I work with many people of different ethnic backgrounds and religions. Our city is diverse. As Rosa said, if you are not Indian, we are all immigrants. I love the city that I live in. People who come here, they come here for a safe, better way of living. They want to provide for their children and their families. And what's going on in our world today, they are being murdered and killed for absolutely no reason. So, I'm going to read a verse out of the King James Version of the Bible from Psalms 133:1, and I quote, "Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity." We should all live here together in peace. And I support the Springfield Safe Community Resolution.
That concludes our public speak out. We will now begin our regular meeting of the Springfield City Council. Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Councilor Edwards. Present. Councilor Allen.
Present.
Present. Councilor Brooke. Present. Councilor Gomez. Present. Present. Councilor Walsh.
Here.
Here. Councilor Marcus Williams.
Present.
Present. Councilor Ash. Here. Councilor Twiggs. Present. Councilor Shea. Present. Present. Councilor Fenton.
Present.
Present. Councilor Hurst. Absent. Councilor Bud Williams. Present. Councilor Ramos.
Present. Council and the guests, please rise for a moment of silence. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All cell phones on silent mode, please. Are there any reports of committee? Councilor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Maintenance and Development Committee met on the Marble Street land taking. The head of DPW, Chris Signoli, spoke on this, as did Kathy Tarpey, representing the Law Department. Chris Signoli stated the Marble Street exit has apartment buildings at the end of it that are problematic. Oh, you can't hear me? I'm sorry. Is my microphone on? Okay. This is a report regarding the Marble Street land taking that has been discussed. Chris Signoli from DPW explained the process to it. Kathy Tarpey talked a little bit about the land taking. 10 properties are involved, with the majority being behind Marble Street. 19 properties' driveways will be affected. Construction is set to begin in the fall. The majority of the streets are dead ends, making traffic very difficult. And this project, it was stated, will help alleviate the congestion of traffic and also help the buses that have a hard time maneuvering with that current layout. And it was stated during this meeting that there was no taking of park land and that all property owners have been notified by mail. And there was not a quorum at the meeting, but I would suggest, because everything has been worked out, full passage by the council.
Thank you for that report. All those in favor of accepting the report say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Councilor Gomez.
I would like to please to be able to take out item number 33 out of order so we can discuss this after.
All right, without objection, Mr. Clerk, item number 33.
Item number 33 is the Safe Springfield Community Resolution. Just as a item of housekeeping, you'll also notice that item number 32 is the May Day resolution. That resolution was before the council on May 1st of this year. That resolution was sent to committee. In between the time that this item was sent to committee and today's meeting, I was contacted by Councilor Gomez, and he informed me that he was withdrawing that resolution. So item number 32 is withdrawn, and currently we are discussing item number 33, the Safe Springfield Community Resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have sponsored the Safe Springfield Communities Resolution from the May Day resolution from last month till now. I have collectively met with all of the supporting organizations that are here with us today, SEIU, Jobs with Justice, PVP, Neighbor to Neighbor, ACLU. A colleague and I have met with Commissioner Barbieri. We've given this language to the law department, and we've received it back. And we've now that this from the May Day till now, this resolution is the appropriate resolution that I wanted to present, and I am honored to be able to present this on my birthday. But at the same time, I want to thank all the organizations that, no matter what, kept on striving and kept on working through the last month to make sure that we're here again today so I can present this, this resolution. If I may, I'm going to read this, and If anybody else after has any questions, we can go through it then. The Safe Springfield Communities Resolution, City of Springfield and the City Council, June 5th, 2017. Whereas the City of Springfield strives to be a diverse and inclusive world-class urban community where people unite to form a caring, learning, participating, sustainable community in which each person is important. And whereas the City of Springfield has a racially, ethnically, and culturally diverse population, and based on the United States Census Bureau, about 60% of our residents are Hispanic, Latino, African American, Asian American, or multiracial. And whereas the Hispanic Latino community of the City of Springfield includes undocumented immigrants who contribute significantly to the city's overall economic activity, and whereas the economic benefit of this population to the local economy includes millions of dollars in tax revenue each year in the form of Social Security payroll taxes, state and local sales tax, and local property taxes paid as rent to local landlords, and whereas public trust in local law enforcement is vital to promoting public safety and encouraging victims of crime to contact the authorities, and whereas the Springfield Police Department prides itself in the positive relationship that it has maintained with the community, including its immigrant community, and maintenance of positive relationships are key to keeping our neighborhoods safe. And whereas, as a scientific peer-reviewed study entitled Insecure Communities, Latino Perceptions of Police Involvement in Immigration Enforcement found that 40% of all Latinos, regardless of immigration status, were less likely to call the police if they were a victim of a crime for fear that the police would ask them or someone that they know about their immigration status. And whereas, regardless of one's personal views regarding undocumented immigrants, in the City of Springfield, we believe our capacity to maximize public safety depends on the ability of our residents to interact with our local law enforcement authorities without fear of negative immigration consequences. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Springfield City Council in regular session strongly urges the following. Number one, that the officers of the Springfield Police Department will continue the practice of not investigating the immigration status of any individual unless the officer believes that knowledge of the individual's immigration status is essential to the proper investigation of a violation of Massachusetts criminal law. Two, that the Springfield Police Department will continue the practice of not detaining undocumented persons at the request of the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, absent a valid judicial warrant issued by federal judge or federal magistrate. Three, that the Springfield Police Department will continue the practice of placing persons under arrest only if there are criminal charges to be filed and or outstanding warrants, and will continue the practice of not making decisions to release, detain, further, or subject an individual to bail. That the City of Springfield and the Springfield Police Department will not enter into a contractual agreement, federal or otherwise, that requires our local law enforcement agents to perform immigration enforcement functions reserved for federal officers trained in immigration law. And five, no provision of this resolution shall be construed as prohibiting the Springfield Police Department from investigating, questioning, or arresting violators of the criminal law or violators of the local Springfield ordinance. And nothing in this resolution shall be construed as limiting the ability of the Springfield Police Department to participate in task force with federal law enforcement agencies. So, a lot of my colleagues know that this is something that is going on within my community, and within this last month, from May 1st until today, we've had two incidents that the pastor had spoke about, that we had two guys, families, ripped from their children. And this is about family. This is about keeping families together. I understand that there is federal statutes, there's a fear, and realistically, the city of Springfield has been asked just one time to detain somebody. So realistically, in our lifetime, what was stated is already what we're doing. We don't have to call it anything but what it is, and it's to support with love and compassion a community that came here with an American dream, that came here to better their lives and to get away from whatever it is that they were running from. But when they came here running, Springfield, because we're a caring city, opened their arms and they became part of this community. Quite frankly, the only difference between myself and them is that my family came from Puerto Rico. Other than that, we believe in the same God, we speak the same language, and we kind of eat the same food. So I want to say it really prides me to stand here and to be able to present this the right way and to really learn, what it's about and how to put things forward when it comes to important issues such as these. And the colleagues that I've spoke to in the background, I want to tell all of you, thank you, because, each and every one of you has showed me that, there's a certain way of doing things, and all of us here, this is the body, and I want to promote that too, that this is the body that does great things. The last year, this body has stood up and done some really fantastic things. So to be able to present this and with this body, it gives me real pride, and it brings nothing but gladness that I can do this, especially on my 34th birthday. So thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Happy birthday. Would the clerk please recognize the counselor seat number 11?
Councilor Hurst. Present.
Counselor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to congratulate Councilor Gomez. This resolution has evolved nicely, and I think from the first we saw of it a few weeks ago, it's come to be a resolution that hopefully everybody will support. I sat down with Commissioner Barbieri myself a couple weeks ago, and I was very pleased with his response. As I know, Councilor Gomez had sat down with him, I believe, at another time. I was very pleased with his response, and I was very pleased with his perspective on this issue, and that public safety is their job, not immigration control. So I just want to state that I support the resolution and support the work Councilor Gomez has done. Thank you.
Councilor Shea.
Yes, I just want to say that what a difference a couple of weeks makes. I think if the atmosphere that we have here tonight, which is really one of the Springfield family, had been able to present itself in the fashion that we had here tonight, we may have approached the last time a little differently. We're passing a resolution, and resolutions are kind of simple. They're pieces of paper and they can get lost. But I want to point out right in the very first part of Councilor Gomez's resolution, because I think the whole nub of the thing is in the first paragraph. It says, the city of Springfield, where people unite to form a caring, learning, participating, and sustainable community in which each person is important. I think that's really the thrust of this whole thing. And Springfield is a caring community. Mm-hmm. It has a history in this entire area and part of the state as being caring. And you can see examples of it in the way the citizens participate. You can see examples of it in the school system with school volunteers, where people come into the schools and volunteer to help the students. You see samples of it in this community with Habitat for Humanity, in which citizens gather to help build homes for people that are homeless. You see it in this city with Meals on Wheels, where citizens participate to take meals around to the shut-ins and the homeless. So it is a caring community. We will continue to be that way. And certainly what is proposed here is what's been done and is designed to see that people feel secure and comfortable in their environment. Thank you.
Councilor Edwards.
Well, first of all, I want to say happy birthday to my colleague. And I want to share in my praise of what he's been able to accomplish. I supported this the May resolution. Unfortunately, it didn't pass, but today we are here, and I'm hopeful that my colleagues will all unanimously support this effort tonight. It's just the right thing to do. Quite often I get things that I have to discuss, I have to contemplate, and I have to actually give serious thought and prayer over whether or not it's the right thing to vote for. And one of the things that I've learned, that any time I make a vote or make a decision, there's usually somebody who doesn't like what I've said and what I do, how I voted on something. This is one of those issues where I'm not concerned about who doesn't like this vote that I'm making tonight. This is the right thing for me to do as a moral person, as a person who celebrates diversity, as somebody who, as what is traditionally known as a mutt, because of my own family dynamics, my own diversity. And let us always recognize that diversity is not a bad thing, whether it's our heritage that we're talking about or whether it's our opinions and our thoughts and the perceptions that we bring to our conversations. Let us always be civil. Let us always share each other the love that as we as Christians supposedly are charged with doing. I believe it's down in the book of James. It says, how can you profess to love God who you've never seen and not love your brother who you do? This is an opportunity to show the love that we're supposed to have for one another as so-called followers of Christ, whether we're Catholics, Protestants, Methodists, Pentecostals, whatever we are, the basis of all religions is to love one another. So thank you, and I once again say happy birthday and congratulations, Adam.
Councilor Fenton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to be extremely brief. This is an awesome moment, and I just wanted to say to Adam and to everybody else who's here, thank you and well done.
Councilor Twiggs.
Offer my input that I rise to. I've heard some extremely well-argued arguments in support of this. Let's go ahead and put this to bed, and I move that disapproval immediately. I move for us to accept this resolution immediately.
Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm here to vote for this week. I'm one of the ones who didn't vote for it last week. I don't think it was presented in a proper manner, in proper form, and the people were so unruly and disrespectful. I never would have voted for that. You don't attack a body. I know there's a mood in this country because of the tension that folks go and they hijack town meetings. Well, town meetings and a body meeting are two different things. This is a body meeting, so I talked with Gomez. I want to commend you for your integrity and your honesty and your courage. A few weeks ago in the State House, we had to pass a law to slow a sheriff down because he had said he would do what Donald Trump wanted to be done. We had to pass legislation to slow him down so he would actually understand what his parameters were. So this is really necessary, and I'm very moved by the narrative and the public testimony of those folks. Because, see, if you don't live it and you don't see it, you don't think it exists. It does exist. They have told me within urban communities, the foot traffic has really slowed down. People are actually afraid to go out because of the perception of what's going to happen. They've stopped. And you might see it, Mr. Gomez. They have stopped. They're not traveling like they used to be. The gas station within these community stores, their businesses have gone down because people are really afraid. They don't understand the process. This is a step, a giant step, I think, to show our citizens in the Commonwealth, we will lead the way. We will lead the way and do what is right and what is fair for each and every citizen in this city and in this town. And let me tell you, you might think this is a big thing. Psychologically, it's a big thing for people because they believe that we are really paying attention. There's a lot of anger in this country now. I've never seen this country like this as long as I've been living. It is angry, and everybody is pitted. You're either this way or you're that way. There's no common ground. There's no in the middle. I just hope that we can continue to work together and do things that are right. but I'm prepared to support this. I want to thank the minister for coming down with his public testimony, those advocates who are actually advocating for folks on the ground who can't really, navigate this system. This is a tough system to navigate on your best day with all the tools that you have. But I plan to support this tonight, and I want to thank the community, SEIU, Cal Feliciano, for coming out and doing what we know is the right thing and the fair thing. It's the American way.
Councilor Ash.
Quickly, Mr. President, a few weeks ago when this was first presented, I made a comment somewhere along the line that this is not the way that this council acts. I thought that it was presented in a way that kind of caught everybody off guard and didn't have time to absorb it and so on. Tonight, I would say that this is the way this council should act and does act. And so thank you, Councilor Gomez, for persevering and proceeding the way that you did, because it was now presented in a way that I think was inclusive. It involved all the necessary parties, including police, our own law department, and others, to make sure that there's clarity. Now, there's clarity on the issue. I think we can all agree in our private conversations or public conversations with the police department. There's no amount of concern. It's things that we are doing and should be doing. And so, again, thank you for the way this has been presented tonight. I'm comfortable and very comfortable to support this tonight.
Is there anyone else? Councilor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'd like to say that the title of this, Safe Springfield, I think it's something we're all interested in, is having a safe community, and obviously we're very concerned about our families and what happens to them. I just have a question for you, Councilor Gomez, because you're the sponsor of it. What is your hope that will happen? Because as I read the resolve, most of it says that the Springfield Police Department is going to continue doing what they already do. So what will be different as a result of this, do you think?
Well, thank you for the question, Councilor Walsh. I believe what this result does is it gives these residents clarification. Right. It gives these residents hope. Yep. It gives these residents a real chance to believe in the body of 13 that sits before them now. Some of these decisions that we do make are tough, and once we're done with this, we have a lot more other tough decisions to make, and this is just a resolve. And honestly, this community would like to see something a little bit better, but it has to start somewhere. Mm-hmm. And the resolve would show that they can count on us when it's time to have this conversation, that they could count on our police department, that already without using the words, those words that everybody's scared to use, that regardless that this city operates as a sanctuary city already.
That's right.
So realistically, we don't need anyone to tell us that this city doesn't care or this city doesn't love and this city doesn't appreciate every single person that lives in it, regardless if they touch the voter box or not. And I want to make sure that all of them are safe, because regardless of them not participating with the federal, because we have federal gang initiatives that they collaborate with, but on the when it comes to immigration, that's a whole different ballgame. And already without them collaborating, ICE is already in our communities, in our city, stopping people, following folks at different places that you've heard. And that's it. It's just to make sure that they understand and they know that we got their back. And that's what's number one about that. When their children grow up, they remember Cateri Walsh. They remember Marcus Williams and the rest of you guys. That they remember that your legacy was that you stood with them. Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Well,
Mr. Walsh.
Councilor Gomez, you may start a trend where each of us brings forward a resolution on our birthday and see how far we get. But I have to agree with my colleagues that the atmosphere is so different tonight. I don't think any of us feel blindsided as we did. And I think it's particularly helpful to know the last time it came before us, we really didn't know about all the people that were involved with this, how they actually felt. And I think it's very helpful, and I think we should commend Commissioner Barbieri for being so supportive of this effort, because I think that's a key element in your passage tonight.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Mr. Clerk, I was originally a co-sponsor of the May Day resolution, and I'd like to request to be added as a co-sponsor to the Safe Springfield Community Resolution as well. All those in favor of all those in favor of the Safe Springfield Community Resolution say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Now it's time for a vote. There's so much criticism of Commissioner Barbieri.
Mr. President, can we have a 2-minute recess?
Yep. We'll now take a 2-minute recess.
I did. We did. The stucco one. Yeah, we did. I like that house.
All right, back to our regular agenda.
I think that close to that street, though, Fort Pleasant. So, you know, the other side of Fort Pleasant is not there.
Thanks, everyone. Back to our regular agenda. Are there any other reports of committee? Councilor Hurst.
Thank you, Mr. President. The General Government Committee met on Tuesday, May 30th. We were joined by Councilor Allen, Councilor Edwards, Councilor Gomez, as well as Councilor Fenton, and we met to discuss Local 648's contract. The Director of HR, Bill Mahoney, will give us a little bit more insight as to the details of the contract. I will let you know, however, that the committee voted favorably for this contract to pass. And if, without objection, I'd like to take this contract out of order.
All right, without objection, item number 11, Mr. Clerk.
Item number 11, ratifying the collective bargaining agreement with IAFF 648.
Good evening.
Good evening, Council. Bill Mahoney, Director of HR. There are about 226 employees in this bargaining unit, and it encompasses the firefighters, lieutenants, captains, and fire apparatus repair personnel. Our negotiations began on February 24th, 2016. We had 5 bargaining sessions. Mediation began on August 1st, 2016. We had 4 mediation sessions. We had a follow-up informal session. And then on May 4th, 2017, we had what's called a 3A hearing down in Boston with the Joint Labor Management Committee. At the commencement of that hearing, the chairman of that committee wanted to do a committee-level mediation with us. And I'm pleased to say that at that mediation, we reached a tentative agreement in principle with the union. We reduced that to writing about May 22nd of 17. The contracts, and it's a 1-year and a 3-year contract, have been ratified by the union, and that's what brings us here tonight. I'm pleased to say that for the first time, we have residency language in this contract for all employees hired on or after July 8th, 2017. And I think a question was raised, it might have been by Councilor Hurst at that meeting, at the subcommittee meeting, about whether or not the current language in the contract applies for residency or not. We were fortunate to dig back into our archives, and there's actually an arbitration decision from 1987 between the city and the IAFF, which said clearly the current language in the contract, the language that's there today, residency does not apply to the members of the bargaining unit. So what we've done today is quite an accomplishment for the new hires. They're going to have to live in the city for 10 years from their date of hire. And we've done a number of other things that are very positive in this contract. We've eliminated the fire alarm division because it's not necessary in this day and age. There's been some increases in the fire watch duty that were reported to you. We have an increase in the or actually a change in the way we do our bracket money. There's an attendance incentive that's built into this contract. We've changed that, and we've tied part of that to a longevity piece. We've changed some uniforms in the agreement. We've provided for some additional pay on the nights before 3 certain holidays because we sometimes have shifts working the night before and the day of. We've increased the working out of grade by $10 per classification. It had not been raised, I think, since 2001. We've tightened up the overtime provisions. We used to have a very strange calculation of the way we did our overtime, and now it's just a straight 6 minutes. Every 6 minutes is calculated. If you work it, you get paid. If you work part of the next 6, you get paid, but you don't get paid anything beyond that. We've eliminated, again, the fire alarm services section of the contract. We've increased the, if you're transferred from one station to another, this happens on occasion in the department, where you may report to one station, you get there, that might be a regular station, to say, no, we need you across
please
town.
keep that door open.
Please
keep that door open? Thank you.
So the firefighter may be assigned to go across town. We had given them $7, and I think this goes back again to 2000 or 1999. We've increased that to $12. We've taken the council a number of years ago, had a cancer screening provision that was an ordinance that was passed. It never was applied to these employees, despite our negotiations with them, because we'd have to actually take them out of service, and that was a risk to the city and it was a risk to them. So we came up with another solution that uses the cancer screening, but it saves the city money in the way we do it. We also have Narcan in this contract. We want to get that in. We've all been following closely the opioid crisis in the United States. At this point now, all we need to do is train, and we can issue Narcan to our employees. The wage increases are 2, 2, 2, and 2, with an additional 1.5 on 7/1/17. And again, it's 2 contracts. The first contract is July 1, 2016 to June 30th, 2017, followed by the next contract, July 1, 17 to June 30, 2020.
Councilor Hurst.
Yes. Mr. Mahoney, can you just speak again to what it is that you found in the archives regarding residency?
Yeah,
please.
Sure. We have an American Arbitration Association arbitration award issued by Robert O'Brien on January 19th, 1987. I'll read the one section that applies, or at least the summary of it. Article 10 makes any such residency requirement subordinate to the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 31, Section 58. Thus, members of the bargaining unit hired subsequent to August 20th, 1979 are allowed to reside within 10 miles of the perimeter of Springfield.
Councilor Williams.
Make the meeting. I was in Boston, so I do have some questions. Now, we know we have one of the top firefighters. Our department is statewide one of the best. I really mean that. And right now we're trying to pass the Parkinson's disease law for the firefighters. The state's trying to take care of that in. But in terms of how come this contract doesn't apply to the new class that's coming in July?
Thank you, Councilor. We talked about that at the subcommittee meeting. There's about 6 or 7 candidates that we've already processed and have been processing, and had sent them, letters from the fire department explaining what the requirements of the job were. And our fear was that we might lose a candidate or two if we changed the requirement when we're this far into the process. Those firefighter candidates are going to be starting with us on July 7th, I believe. So it's 6 or 7. Of course, of what I tell anyone that will listen.
So they were told in the beginning they didn't have to live in Springfield.
That was the rule. Yeah, I mean, because we were processing them for a while. Right.
I'm going to try to get, but that's debatable whether that was the rule. It just wasn't enforced.
No. I think that is the rule. That's the decision I was just reading to you. That goes back to 1987. Same language, same contract, same parties. That is the rule.
I'm going to try to get by that because I don't want to keep beating the dead horse, because I totally just disagree with you, because I was part of 1995 for the residency. Let's move on. But
So you got one class, and then the following class also?
No.
So you have 7 firefighters.
Yeah, 6 or 7.
Who you couldn't say, well, if I knock you off, there's always somebody waiting behind them.
At this point, I think the fire department has done quite a bit of processing with these folks. I don't know that we'd get somebody else in time.
Bill, come on. You're a smart guy. You can do a lot. I think it's a good contract because it gets folks in the city for at least 10 years, and maybe after 10 years they'll be vetted, and we'll have all this activity going on in Springfield, and they will want to stay and live in Springfield. But the other piece is I want to make sure, because we still have a suit going on, right? There's a suit going on in Superior Court, I believe.
Yeah, I'm not representing the city in that. I don't represent the city in that matter.
I didn't say you represented. I said, are you aware of the suit going on?
I know there is a lawsuit, yes.
There's a lawsuit which is intertwined in all of this.
I don't know that it is with this contract, but okay.
Just let me make
there's a lawsuit about residency,
Here's
yes.
the point I'm trying to make.
Yep.
I don't want to hamstring anybody by passing this, and they go back over to Superior Court tomorrow morning and say, all right, oh, by the way, we don't have residency anymore. And I think I'm going to ask the law department to give me, and we're not in the case, but I need a little more clarification to actually what this means for a pending suit that's going on. And if we pass this, which just eliminates residency, well, it starts residency from July 1st forward, instead of going back to the court that residency was in place. I just want to know. Attorney? And maybe you can answer the question and maybe you can't. I don't know.
I actually can't. I don't have anything to do with the litigation.
Yeah, what now?
I don't have anything to do with the litigation.
That's
but
not my point.
Solicitor
I know you don't have anything to do.
Pakula is more than willing to speak on that when he enters back into the room.
Where's Pakula?
I can go grab him. I'll find him. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
He's right
there.
here.
Oh, how did I know you were going to be here tonight? How did I know this? I just have just so I can have clear. You're familiar with the case because I think you're representing the city against the plaintiffs, the 10 citizens, and some of the fires. By us passing this is simply saying, well, going forward, residency will now take place. Forget what happened years and years and years ago because it was in the archives that we couldn't find it, no one enforced it, it didn't exist.
The best advice I could give you without going into executive session would be to let the Superior Court take care of the lawsuit. That lawsuit doesn't directly challenge anything to do with the firefighters' contract. The firefighters' union intervened in that lawsuit on their own. They were not named a party. And the reason they intervened is because they felt it affected their promotional opportunities. So they felt they had a right to be there. That lawsuit is about the district. And, when it comes to that lawsuit, I know we have a contract there, and there is some intertwined there, and I have some advice to give you on that. But sticking to this, I would let each one deal with their own. That would be the best legal advice I could give you.
I thank you because I saw that 648 had signed on, so this is 648 we're doing tonight. They're still part of the suit. Are they going to?
They chose to be. They asked to intervene.
They asked the court. What do you call it, attorney? Friends of the court or something?
No, they are a party. They intervened as a party
because they felt they'd have some harm done to them if.
It impacts them. It impacts their promotional opportunities.
Because
they wanted to have a voice.
Because they had to live in Springfield. That's what it comes down to.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the ordinance that we have applicable to the district chiefs already requires that. That's different than the firefighters. That's not this contract.
Thank you. I want that to be on the record. That's all. Thank you.
But.
Councilor Fenton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of this contract. Having spent a great deal of time over the course of the last almost 8 years working on the residency issue, I'm really proud of what's been achieved here today by Bill and the city, Drew and the union, and this body by taking a really hard hard stance on residency. This will give us, in my estimation and in my research over the years, one of the most strict and stringent residency requirements for fire departments across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Attorney Mahoney indicated earlier that we haven't had residency compliance for the fire department, this local, since 1987. To put it in a little bit of more clear perspective, that was the year I was born. And in the last 30 years, the rule has been when you apply for the job to get into the academy, you have to live in the city. Once you're in the academy, go where you will. And the city has seen some pretty devastating consequences from that type of arrangement over the course of the last few decades, 3 to be exact. So I'm really proud of this contract. I'm really proud and thankful for the work that's been done to bring it before us here today. And I think that it's going to make an excellent addition to the other collective bargaining contracts, dozen plus at this point, that the council's ratified in the last 2 to 3 years with residency requirements.
Any other? Councilor Gomez.
I just had another question for Mr. Mahoney. Out of the new class that's coming in, you said 7 or 8?
6 or 7.
6 or 7? Oh, sorry. How many of them are Springfield residents?
I have a note in here, in my just notes. I don't know how it got in here. I know I wrote it, but it says all of them.
I just wanted to make sure, because I remember at the last meeting we had subcommittee, Commissioner Cohen had said that every single one of them already lived in the city.
Right.
So my question is, since they live in the city already, why would that class be grandfathered in if they already live in the city?
Yep. Only because they had the understanding coming onto the job that they were going to be treated like everyone else that currently works for us.
I'm not saying that you said, but so it was understood that after they were hired, they can violate the ordinance.
Not violate the ordinance. They're not
subject. It's
yeah,
different.
They're not subject to it. Right. They're not
Okay.
subject to it.
Damn.
So, but it's stipulated since 1987 that to get hired, you need to live in Springfield.
Yeah. Since civil service has a preference for residents of the city, and we typically don't get beyond that in our selection process. We hire enough so we don't really get beyond that. But you could live outside the city and get hired into the civil service position in Springfield and be subject to the rules under 31 Section 58. But we really don't get down into that next group of non-residents.
So the next class that was to come in, they would fall into this this contract.
Yes, Counselor, you're correct.
All right, and then another question for this young man right here. So this contract has nothing to do with the fire chief's contract, and what's in litigation now has to do with the fire chief's contract, but this union signed on to this litigation that's going on in Superior Court now.
Okay, there's a number of questions there.
Okay.
But
So let me just start over.
Sure.
So what's in litigation is the fire chief's contract. That's the suit with the 10.
That's correct.
With the 10 residents.
That's correct.
Okay. So this union that we're talking about now signed on to that same
They asked to intervene in the lawsuit so they could
it's
be
10
heard.
It's union plus 10, or they just want it to be heard?
No, they're a defendant. They're intervened as a defendant, but they named themselves in there. They weren't named originally. They came in to say, this lawsuit affects our promotional opportunities, and we want to be heard.
So these 10 individuals and the union are on the same side?
No.
They're completely...
Correct.
Okay. Now, honestly, I have to ask those questions because I have to really digest this. So, all right, thank you. You answered my questions. Appreciated the both of you.
Councilor Hurst.
My biggest concern with respect to approving this contract really is around enforcement of residency. And I know the city has done has not done the best of jobs in terms of enforcement, especially when it comes to the district chief's contract. What makes this body believe, in your opinion, that you guys would do anything different with this particular contract when it comes to enforcement? Yeah. I know the bodies have agreed to it, but it still seems to me like there are some holes with respect to enforcement. So all of these people come to you with Springfield addresses. What's to say a year from now, when they move outside of the city, who's going to be there in terms of checks and balances? And what does that process look like?
Yeah, we have a monthly meeting with the Residency Compliance Unit in my office, which consists of me and 2 of my assistants. We go over the addresses of all employees that are hired, particularly when we have someone that's coming in that does not have a Springfield residence, because they have a year to move into the city, and we track that. And if as we get closer to the 1 year, we start sending letters out, and we say, listen, we're still showing an address for you living in, pick a town outside of the city. Are you in compliance? Are you in compliance? And when we get to that point that the year is up, the letter goes to the department head, we bring the employee in, we say, we don't think you're in compliance, and you're going to go.
What about the people who come in with Springfield addresses and then move out? How are you made aware of that? I mean, what?
It would have to be if someone would drop a dime. That's how we would find out about it.
Okay. And so they would come to you and report that to you?
Yep.
Councilor Williams.
Isn't there a residential form that we all fill out every year stating where you live and where you don't live?
Right. Yes, there is.
So someone would have to drop a dime. You couldn't figure out that.
Well, I think if they're going to move out, they may not be as honest on that form, perhaps.
But I'm saying again, we need a compliance officer. I talked to TJ about this on every aspect in this city, from employment to construction to boards and commission. There is no compliance. Contractors and people in the city do what the heck they want to do. There's no enforcement. There is no enforcement. And I'm not yelling at you. If we expect you to enforce residency, you with 2 people and you got a personnel department, you're overseeing all these individuals in the city, you can't do it. And you're not going to do it.
We do it.
And then I remember when they had a city council person who was on this council, and they said this person lived here, this person lived there. I'm not calling names. They, when you want to get they had the police going to verifying where this individual lived. Can we do that?
Can we have the police verify where they live?
I'm just telling you what has been done in the past.
Okay.
This individual was on a city council. They said he lived here. They said he lived there. And then folks went after him. It was so bad they had the police department going to verify where he lived. Do you have the mechanism to do that?
I don't have the police department go check on anyone's address.
I said, do you have the capability and the mechanism to do it?
We certainly could ask the police department to do that.
Who actually goes out and physically, if someone dropped a complaint and they said, I know this guy has 2 addresses, do you go verify? Or someone just comes and say, well, I live here, here's my postage where I live at?
We've had one of those a number of years ago. Where someone had dropped a dime, we had the employee come in, and the employee gave us the electric bill, the cable bill, the rent, everything showing that employee lived in the city. That's how we verified it.
We know in Springfield, we have a lot of good employees. There are a lot of employees in the Springfield are not playing by the rules, and we know it. They're not playing by the rules. We get dimes dropped all the time, and it's not right. We need to have a compliance in Boston. When there's a complaint, they go out and they check it out. And they actually, sometimes they set people in front of the building to see if they're going in and out and where they live. This is, what happens. It makes it difficult for those who play by the rules. They play by the rules, they live in the city, they verify their addresses. There's some folks we know who do not play by the rules. They give a Springfield address, they're living in Agawam, they're living in Westfield, they're living in Chicopee, they're living all over. And it's not the rank and file, it's the guys up top. That's not right. I mean, we need to talk to TJ to get some beef for you, to give you a real compliance unit. You're doing the best you can do. You can't do that unless, people start snitching on people and dropping dimes, as you just said. That's the only way they'll be able to do it. We need to talk about this body. You need a compliance officer in this city. For MGM, no one's watching MGM. They play by the self-report. They play by their own rules. CRRC plays by their own rules. You have a host agreement that nobody enforces. Nobody enforces. So what's going to happen, the Springfield residents get shortchanged at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, it's a business decision for people. And all they care about is the green stamps. At the end of the day, we need compliance so folks in this city get a fair shake. Just like you passed that Safe City ordinance, which was great. Let's talk about a compliance officer to get on some of these contracts and jobs for our people. Union Station, those things all going up everywhere, all over. Dr. Seuss Museum. I don't see any people of color at any of these things working. I mean, working. This is real. This is what you see. The optics don't look good. And I'm not taking it out on you, Bill. Trust me, I'm not. I'm just so frustrated when I ride around the city with all the construction and stuff going on. This city is a majority-minority city. And it has to reflect on the jobs, piece of the action, and the promotions in City Hall and the school department. It should reflect the city. It should look like the city which we serve. That's all I'm saying. It's not, all these high 100,000 here, 80,000 here, 70,000 here. 7 people, 7 firefighters. We couldn't hire them because the contract July 1st, because if they all live in the city, what's the problem? If they already live in the city, how come they couldn't abide by the contract? So that's my frustration. Until we get a compliance officer to really go out, and TJ and myself and Councilor Hurst, we're going to put on the hard hats, and TJ is going to take us to one of the sites. And we're going to try to physically go like Melvin we used to do, physically go to these sites. You have to physically go to the sites and look and be a warden of the works, clerk of the works. You have to look and match people up where they live, where they work. Other than that, no one's playing by the rules. No one. It's just like everyone's doing their own thing. So that's my piece for the day.
Councilor Twiggs?
I went to Union Station.
Mr. President, I rise obviously to support my colleagues.
Freaking people, jobs.
Councilman Williams, I thought I was going to pass out waiting for him to get through.
Well, Henry, we know you've been sick, so.
I'm not talking. I didn't interrupt. I didn't say a word while he was speaking. Did anybody hear me? He spoke very eloquently about what his passion was, and I, too, agree with him. Mr. President, I want to take liberty to, if I might, to just thank all of the council's members and friends who have extended to me their well wishes and prayers over the last several weeks. I especially want to thank Councilman Rook, who sent me a message every week. Hi, E. Henry, with his note there. He called me quite frequently, I might add. I'm not. He's still a good guy. That wasn't a word I would use, but I also want to thank you, Mr. President, and especially the staff of this august body for their consistent checking in on me to see how I was doing. Most of you know that God is great.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, He's there for all of us, and I thank Him for all He does for me. Now, let me just say, with respect to 688, my colleague, our past illustrious chair of this body, Michael Fenton, and Tim Allen and I worked on residency from the day we got here. And it's been well over 8 years that we have given consideration to this. This is a very, very important issue. I'm happy to see what the maintenance subcommittee has done with respect to negotiating this, and Bill Mahoney ought to be congratulated. I think he's been kicked around enough knowing that he's come here without some residency stuff, we ain't gonna approve it. The citizens have told us that they want a residency order. If you take a check from us, you ought to live in our city and help pay taxes. You can move to East Longmeadow, Wilbraham, wherever you want to live. I don't give a damn. But if you live here and take a check from us, you're going to live by the residency requirement. The 10-year period give us a lot to desire. As has been stated, it's probably one of the strongest measurement we have in the state, probably in the Northeast. I just hope that we can elect some people to come before us that might even extend that in 10 years. Folk, if you live in town, you ought to want to pay some tax. Somebody said that people don't want to live in Springfield. Well, if you don't want to live in Springfield, move someplace else and get a job someplace else. This is our city. We all have done our wonderful best to make it a great city, as the Sage Springfield Community Resolution stated. Now, as I entered this chamber tonight, I came in contact with a person I have not always agreed with, but a person that I have a lot of respect for. And he's asked me if I would petition this council if he can speak before it through me. And I'd like to petition the president if Attorney Kevin Coyle can speak for briefly a few minutes. I know that this is not the... why can't he do it? Attorney Kevin Coyle.
Thank you, Councilor Twiggs. My role here is more on behalf of the district chiefs, and
you're on the wrong one then.
I would invite you to give me this opportunity again when that's before the council.
Very well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Twiggs, and we're very glad to have you back.
Thank you.
Anyone else wanting to speak on this issue? Any final questions, concerns, comments, amendments?
Anybody in there?
Seeing none, just before we vote, I just want to thank my colleagues for standing firm on the residency issue. Thank you for all your hard work. Mr. Clerk, this is a financial order which is subject to Rule 19. All those in favor of suspending Rule 19 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Roll call.
On approving item number 11, the collective bargaining agreement. Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rook.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Gomez.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Marcus Williams.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Ash.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Twiggs.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Shea.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Fenton.
Absolutely yes.
Absolutely yes. Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Bud Williams.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Ramos.
Yes. More than sufficient. Order is approved. Back to our regular agenda. Are there any other reports of committee? Councilor Fenton.
Mr. President, unless there's any objection, can we take item number 12 out of order? I believe that's the other contract that we've been referencing a few times here.
All right. Objection on the floor. Are there any other reports of committee? Councilor Allen.
Mr. President, we had a Finance Committee meeting tonight. It had 19 items in it. The meeting was held at 4 o'clock because of the budget hearing that was held. I was the only member of the Finance Committee who was able to make the meeting. You yourself joined the meeting after a while, as did Councilor Shea. And so as a result, we made no votes. We had no votes. We did not have a quorum. But we did discuss many items. And I'm not going to go through all the items here. They'll come up individually. But I did want to point out one piece of information that I think is important for everybody to know, because it will affect a couple items tonight, and it will affect a couple items in a couple weeks. And that is that we received $4.9 million of free cash. Just as a reminder, free cash is the amount of money that is certified after a budget year completes. So last budget year completed 11 months ago on June 30th of 2016. The money that is quote unquote left over has to be certified by the Department of Revenue that all the bills we should have paid have been paid, and that all the right financial transactions that needed to take place took place. And after 6 or 8 or 9 months, we find out how much money of that money that was kind of left over from the previous budget, and pardon my use of the word leftover, because there's many other things we could spend it on, obviously. But if you're going to take some notes, I think here, I'm going to give you a few items that might be worth writing down. So of that $4.9 million that came back to the city a month or two ago, and we have already approved snow and ice that was for $160,000, police cars for $450,000, and tonight on this agenda will be 3 different votes. One on the OPEB trust, which is setting aside money for health care benefits. One is on a scanning project that affects the assessor's department as well as city clerks. And one is on the Acela system, which will help, which is a software system that we've used here for licensing and for code enforcement, et cetera. So let me just give you the numbers. Snow and ice, $160,000. Police cars, $450,000. Already approved, both of them. Tonight, OPEB trust, $494,000. The scanning project, $244,000. And the Acela project, $111,000. So those 5 items add up to about $1.46 million, $1,460,000, roughly. When you take that off the $495,000 that we got in free cash, it leaves us with about $3.36 million, $3,360,000. You may recall a year ago I made a presentation on budget night about the pension liability. And I'm not going to make an update to that tonight. I will have an update to it at an upcoming meeting. But basically, we are left with if we approve these 3 items tonight, we'll have $3.3 million roughly left to distribute. And the distribution of that money will be presented to us by the finance team on the 19th, which is 2 weeks from tonight, their proposed distribution. I just wanted to say I'm proposing to them that $1 million of it go to the pension liability fund that we started last year with $1 million, that we put another $1 million in there, and that the other 2.3 go to regular stabilization. So we don't have to worry about that tonight, but the way it affects tonight's agenda is that the 3 things you're voting on tonight, the OPEB trust and the scanning project and the Acela project, they add up to somewhere around $850,000. And those items are coming from free cash. If we fund them, they come from free cash, which affects how much is left in free cash for regular stabilization or for the pension fund. So I'm not here to ask you to vote one way or the other on it. I would like to have $1 million in the pension fund. I think we started a good idea last year. We did it last year. We should do it this year, but we won't vote on that tonight anyway. But just bear in mind that the free cash pot of money that came back, if we vote these 3 things tonight, we will have spent $1.46 million roughly of that amount of money, and it'll leave us with $3.36 or something like that to distribute into the 2 stabilization funds in a couple weeks. So I just want to point that out because there's no free money. It's called free cash, but it's not free. It could be used on 1 million different things. We all know what things we could use it on. So these projects tonight are deemed important by TJ and by other people in City Hall. The OPEB trust is something we made a commitment that we would put 10% of our free cash into the OPEB trust, so I don't think there's much discretion on that. The other 2 projects, you vote as you see fit. You'll hear about them as they come up. But I just want you to have the overall picture that we should end up with $3.3 million if we vote all these things roughly to distribute between the 2 stabilization funds. And I'm proposing that $1 million go into the pension fund so we can continue the good practice of setting aside some money. Thank you.
All those in favor of accepting the report say aye.
Aye. Just on the report, got a question for the chairperson on the report.
Go ahead, Councilor Williams.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. Just in terms of, you said the $3 million would be left. You're proposing $1 million to go into the what now? I think he can answer.
Yeah, we set up a fourth stabilization reserve last year. There's 3 already. The one we always talk about that's 40 million plus. There's a couple other small ones that have been sitting there without a lot of money in them for years. We set up a fourth one last year to set aside money for pensions. It has $1 million in it. The $1 million we put in it last year came from free cash. So if we want to be consistent, we would put another $1 million in it this year from free cash.
Here's my little take on that, and I know that we've been talking about our parks in some communities for a very, very long time, and I would hope that that would become part of the conversation, because every time it comes to fixing the parks on the north end, Mason Square, the south end, and Pine Point, we never do it. There are parks that are waiting to be done. They're in this 5-year plan. TJ promised and Pat Sullivan that they would try, make an attempt to do something with it. So I would hope in the discussion you won't forget folks within the urban community of the city for that money that can be spent on a whole lot of different, in a lot of different areas.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. President.
Councilor Williams, just on that point, just wanted to point out that at the last budget hearing, I did ask questions of the finance department in regards to how the PAYGO account has been used. And if you notice in the budget that was presented to us, under capital projects of 2018, it is listed that $450,000, I believe, went towards fixing the tennis courts at Forest Park.
Yeah, Mr. President, I voted for that to do Forest Park. I get that. I'm not talking about Forest Park. I'm talking about many parks that have been on the list long before Forest Park for the tennis courts. Forest Park actually jumped a lot of other projects. I'm not yelling at you, but that's what happened. I understand the tennis courts need to be done. There are some parks, Harriet Tubman needs to be done. Signs gone. That park is off Hickory Street. Since the tornado, okay? How long? When's the tornado? 211. I understand that 450 went to the. We voted for that. Beyond that,
the exact amount was $440,780. That was that was from the PAYGO account, which did not go through this, which did not come before the city council. But the reason I bring it up is because I'm agreeing with you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. But TJ's got to figure how, you got the north end has a park that needs to be done. I was down there at a baseball game. The field is dirt. Embarrassing. And it's been years. I'm not talking about something that's been around for the last several months. It's been years.
I agree.
If we can take MGM and do the golf courses, give them money on the golf courses, we should be able to invest money in the communities. And part of the violence you're seeing, we need to upgrade our parks, give our young people some place to go. This is going to be a long, hot summer. It's going to be a long, hot summer. And we keep playing around. We'll fiddle while Springfield burns, basically. We got to give opportunities for these young people, let them know we care about them.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you.
All those in favor of accepting the finance report say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Are there any other reports of committee? Back to our next item, Mr. Clerk. Items 1 through 4, please.
Items 1 through 4 are reports and recommendation from the Board of Public Works. Item 1 is a petition from Columbia Gas to install underground gas pipes in Dearborn Street. Item number 2 is from Eversource for the installation of electric conduit on Hickory Street. Item number 3 is from Columbia Gas for the installation of underground gas mains on Middlesex Street. Item number 4 is the installation of underground gas mains on Bristol Street. The recommendations for all 4 items is to approve.
Good evening, councilors. The petitions we have in front of you tonight, 3 of them by Columbia Gas, are somewhat extensions of the intersection improvement project that we're doing at Roosevelt and Alden Street. Columbia Gas is taking the opportunity to upgrade their systems in the project area. And the upgrade of the Hickory Street through Eversource is in advance of the work that will be done, completed by the city, Springfield Water and Sewer, and the gas company in completing all of the improvements in the Eastern Ave corridor.
Any questions from the council? Seeing none, all those in favor of the petition say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 5, Mr. Clerk.
Item number 5 is a grant called the Highway Safety Sustained Enforcement Program in the amount of $32,354, sponsored by the mayor.
We'll take, actually, go ahead.
Good evening, Council. I'm here before you all to request the acceptance of additional FY17 Sustained Traffic Enforcement Program funding in the amount of $32,354.
Any questions from the council? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the grant say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk, it looks like items 6 through 9 are under 50,000, and so we'll take those together.
Item number 6 is the Mass Multi-City Young Children's Mental Health Grant in the amount of $22,000. Item number 7 is a TJO donation in the amount of $19,114.18. Item number 8 is a Mass in Motion grant increase in the amount of $10,000. Item number 9 is a FY17 state aid to public libraries increase in the amount of $9,549.14.
All those in favor of accepting the grant say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 10, Mr. Clerk.
Item number 10 is an order approving the intergovernmental agreement between the Hampden County Sheriff's Department for pre-arraignment holding with the Police Department.
Good evening.
Good evening, councilors. Kathleen Breck, Deputy City Solicitor from the City of Springfield Law Department. I'm here to ask the council to approve an intergovernmental agreement with the Hampden County Sheriff's Department. Sheriff Nick Kochi has invited the Hampden County local police departments to use the Hampden County Sheriff's Department facility on Randall Road in Ludlow as a pre-arraignment holding facility, which would free up the Springfield Police Department cells, for example, on weekends and overnight for prisoners. The conditions in the Hampden County Sheriff's Department are far preferable to the conditions at the 130 Pearl Street Springfield Police Department lockup. And the way it would work is if someone was arrested and was going to be held overnight or say over a weekend, and especially a long weekend, but they weren't able to post bail. As long as they weren't having some sort of a medical condition and had some other issues, they would be eligible to go over to the Hampden County Sheriff's Department to stay over until they could be arraigned upon the next court date. Sometimes if someone was arraigned on a Friday night, for example, and if there was a Monday holiday, it might be several days before they could get arraigned if they were unable to post bail. And the facilities at the Sheriff's Department are far preferable. They also have trained staff there. They have access to medical care, mental health services if needed, et cetera. And what would happen is that the Springfield Police Department would transport those prisoners who are eligible over to Ludlow. The Sheriff's Department would hold them there, take them to court on the next available court date, and then return them. Whether they got bailed out, they would be set free, or if they weren't bailed out, they would then go back to the Hampden County Sheriff's Department, but then they would be post-arraignment. So as you all know, an arraignment is that first time someone who's been placed under arrest appears before the court in the district court to have bail set or not. Some folks are released on their personal recognizance, and then they're free to leave. So it's a wonderful opportunity for the Springfield Police Department to free up the cells. The Sheriff's Department is not charging anything for this service. So we see it as a win-win. The police department supports it wholeheartedly. Several other Hampden County police departments are already using this process. So what they do require is an intergovernmental agreement with Springfield, and that's why I'm here tonight to answer any questions you may have about the agreement which is attached to the order. And again, there'd be no cost unless a situation occurred where a prisoner who had not yet been arraigned had to go to the hospital from the Hampden County Sheriff's Department, and if a Springfield police officer wasn't available to maintain a presence with the prisoner while at the hospital, and if the Sheriff's Department staff had to do that and it was overtime, that they would potentially seek the overtime cost reimbursement from SPD. But we don't foresee that being a regular occurrence. We would hope to have a Springfield officer be able to go and sort of maintain a presence with the prisoner while at the hospital.
Councilor Gomez.
So who would be in charge of transporting them from Pearl Street to Hampden County?
The Springfield Police Department would be transporting, we would send an officer to transport them. It would, if it was Monday through Friday, it would be after 4 p.m. If it was a holiday or weekend, it would be, they could go at any time. And there's only certain folks that would be sent over. For example, if it was likely that someone could post bail or might be released on their own recognizance, they would not be sent over. And anyone that had any sort of a medical condition would not be sent over. We'd bring them for medical care first.
Is there like a time frame on when they would be sent over? Like, say, if it was Saturday evening and they were supposed to get arraigned on Monday, would that be on the police department or the sheriff's department to take on that responsibility to wonder when it's appropriate to send them over or not?
So we haven't done it yet. Okay. Other departments have, and they're sort of working the details out. But the only restriction we have in the agreement presently is if it's a Monday through Friday, they're just asking, the sheriff's department is asking, could we wait till 4 o'clock or after to transport them? But if it was a holiday or a weekend, they could be transported at any time. But I would think the police department would want to wait a little while to see how many folks potentially we could bring over so that we could transport them all at one time.
So what I heard was it's on if we have enough folks to make that trip, because they don't want to consistently go back and forth with some of these individuals.
Right, but they're...
So I'm just giving you a scenario. If one individual is arrested, that one individual would stay in the cell the whole weekend, but if there was like 4 or 5 of them?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to suggest that. Okay. I just meant in a given day, they might wait a little while to see if more than one person, but they would not make someone wait the entire weekend just to put another person in the vehicle, no.
I think that's, when it comes to the medical piece of it, myself being diabetic, and being in that situation before, it was a problem to get my medication when I was younger. So I'm totally. I think this is a good move because it's not going to cost us anything. Only if it requires them to bring them to the hospital and have to work that detail to watch this individual.
And if it was overtime for the sheriff's department, if they had to incur an overtime cost having someone watch that prisoner at the hospital.
But the responsibility is on us to transport them to them.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Seeing none?
Thank you.
This requires a voice vote. All those in favor of approving the order say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 12, Mr. Clerk.
Item number 12 is the ratification of the collective bargaining agreement with the SFCA.
Good evening, councilors. Bill Mahoney, Director of HR and Labor Relations. By way of just background, we began negotiations with the Fire Chiefs Association on January 25th, 2013. We've had 9 bargaining sessions and 3 mediation sessions. There's 10 employees in the bargaining unit. And I've been in front of you before on this contract. This is actually a series of 4 contracts that would cover the period of July 1, 2012 to June 30th, 2020. And it will put this, we have 4 public safety bargaining units. This is the 4th and only one that does not have a contract. Everyone else is under contract, and this would follow the same pattern that we've had with the other ones. The last time I was with you on April 10th, the contract was not approved by the council, and my takeaways from that meeting were that there were 2 main concerns. The first was that the council did not like the way that we had grandfathered the entire fire department. Our thought on that was that it would just be consistent with everyone's going to be treated the same from firefighter all the way up. I heard the council on that. We've addressed it. So there is no grandfathering of the entire department. So anyone that's promoted on or after July 1st, 2017 into the district chief bargaining unit has to live in the city. And that residency language is actually stronger than the language that was just approved by this council. This council had a 10-year that you just approved on the IFF. This is permanent residency. So you're subject to the city's ordinances from the time you're in that bargaining unit all the way through for the rest of your career. The other takeaway I got from our meeting the last time was that the council did not appreciate the 1.5%, which is a quid pro quo for this residency language. That's gone. After the General Government Subcommittee meeting that we had last week, chaired by Councilor Hurst, I had the opportunity to meet with the fire chief's president and the representative out in the hallway, and that was the conversation that we had. It was very clear. There's been two takeaways from that last meeting. We need to address these concerns with the council, and this is what has to happen. And we negotiated that together, and we're bringing it back, which I think is a great package for your consideration. The other changes are all there. The other things that we've talked about. We've had some positive things that have come out of this negotiations. We had the finance package that we've been trying to get with everybody, the direct deposit, the electronic payroll advices, the first group to agree to a biweekly payroll on the city side of government. We fixed the non-discrimination language. There was missing some elements from Chapter 151B that we have in here now that wasn't here before. We've done the drug testing, the one-time drug testing on the random end of this, like we've done with the other public safety bargaining units. We've gotten rid of the fire alarm part of this because we've gotten away from that line of work in the fire department. We've talked about the residency, and again, the duration and the money was just a 0 in the first year, 2, all the way through for 7 twos after that 0, covering the 8 years, with the 1.5% for the collateral duties, which is something that we had in front of you before, and because we're adding a bunch of duties to each of the district chiefs has new duties being assigned to him for these collateral duties, which are very important to the fire department.
Councilor Hurst.
Thank you, Councilor Ramos. Thank you, Bill Mahoney, for your hard work. I know it's not easy, and I know probably the last time maybe I didn't adequately express to you all of the reasons why I didn't care for the last contract. But what I can tell you is that there were a lot more than the 1.5% in the fact that you were grandfathering an entire fire department when the district chiefs are an entirely different collective bargaining unit. So you were grandfathering in rank and file as well. But I certainly appreciate that you made some headway with respect to the 1.5% for residency. The reality is those particular individuals should have been in compliance with residency anyway. The main takeaway for me is that these 5 district chiefs, and I'll say again, are currently in violation of the residency ordinance. And nothing that you have brought before us this evening rectifies that. And I'm not 100% sure that, I know that's a difficult task, but it's hard for me to approve anything that does not bring these district chiefs into compliance. Now, I know it's probably difficult for the administration to fire these individuals. I get it. Everybody has families, and everybody needs to support their families. However, for me to approve the contract, something needs to come before us that forces these individuals to live in the city, who, like my counselor earlier said, are making large amounts of money and then taking those tax revenues to other towns in Western Mass. So again, I appreciate your work, but I don't think any counselor who rejected this contract the last time, based off of the reasonings that I've just pointed out, should approve this contract this time around. Because when it comes to residency, nothing essentially has changed, and grandfathering the entire rank and file department from not having to live in the city once they potentially become district chiefs was an overreach from the very outset. So I hope that at the very least, if my colleagues are in agreement, that the next contract that you bring before us, at the very least, has language that requires these individuals to move back into the city or be demoted, and give somebody else an opportunity to make that type of money who is invested in the city, who cares about the city, and who believes that their tax dollars should go towards making this city a better place.
Councillor Allen.
Thanks, Mr. President. Mr. Mahoney, if you could just, since you're involved in all these contracts, and we get a dose of them as we come here and they get presented to us, and sometimes we know a little more about that. I guess I just like a little progress report kind of thing. So how, of the 23 unions that we have in the city, when several of us were were elected in 2009, started here in 2010, residency became a mission for several of us. And could you just give us a progress report on how many contracts of the 23 now have stronger residency language than they did at that time, generally speaking?
So we have 24 contracts between city and schools, 12 on the school side, 12 on the city side. We had 5 in 2009 that had residency language. We now have, as of tonight, 17, I believe.
We had 5 in 2009, now we have 17.
17.
Is that what you said?
And what if I can just address I think it kind of fits in with where you were going and what Councilor Hurst said. We've done this strategically. This is long-term planning. We're not trying for short-term gains. We're trying for long-term gains that are going to stick. And that's why, we've brought you these grandfathered contracts time and again, because it's something that we can make a deal on with the unions, whether it's a union of 10 like the district chiefs, or it's a union like 226 with the firefighters. And hopefully, when I come back to you to see you talk about the police officers. But, to force to get a group to say, well, we're all going to move is really hard to achieve at the bargaining table. But what's a little bit easier is to go and say, look, we're going to grandfather this. We know you guys are going to retire. We know you're going to leave government. And we know we're going to have other people that are climbing up the ladder, and they're going to be in this position, and they are going to be residents of the city, and they are going to be subject to the ordinance. And that's what we've been doing since 2009. So we've had these positions that have been vacant. People are retiring or leaving, or they're going to take other jobs, and we're filling that with people that are coming in and are subject to the ordinance. And that's the long-term strategic plan of what we're trying to do in human resources and labor relations. And that's why we bring you this tonight with the focus on these 10. They're going to sometime they're going to retire, and the positions will be vacated, and we'll be able to fill it with city residents.
So if these 5 people who are in this union, I believe there's 10 people in the union, 8 district chiefs and a couple other people. Yep. If they were to move out if they were to retire, right, the people who replace them, yep, would have to live in the city.
Subject to the ordinance, yes. As soon as promoted into the bargaining unit, yes.
So it's subject to the ordinance, but the ordinance, at one time, we've paid a lot of attention to it in the last few years.
Right.
Is it the same ordinance that wasn't paid attention to for quite a while?
This is the ordinance passed by the city council. This is the ordinance that has been passed by the city council as revised a couple of times since 2009.
Okay, so it's a new.
Yeah, it's the one. It's your ordinance, right?
It's our ordinance. Yeah. And if you could just repeat Councilor Williams had you repeat it before that, 1987.
Right. There was in the IFF contract, there was language, and we talked about it at the subcommittee meeting, which, it said, subject to the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 31, Section 58, employees hired in the bargaining unit are subject to the city ordinances as revised and amended. Was the language in the other contract. Somehow that got into grievance arbitration back in 1987. And Arbitrator O'Brien looked at that and said, and this is the exact same language that was in the contract until we ratified tonight, said, you know what? They're not subject to the ordinance. They're subject to Chapter 31, Section 58. They can live in the city or within 10 miles of the perimeter. That was what the finding of that arbitrator was, that we've been living with since 1987.
Was that known as we keep talking about the residency ordinance was in effect, but that ruling by that judge, if it was, superseded the other Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that's the law of the land for labor relations, is that arbitration award. Unless you have that set aside in court somehow, and I don't believe they ever did. It cost me a lunch this week, or last week, to get that award from an old colleague, but that's the law of the land for us.
Okay, so there's a couple, I'm just trying to get some facts straight for me and for others if you're interested. The third thing is we have settled many other contracts. I mean, to go from 5 to 17, it implies that we had at least 12 contracts before us that we've put stronger residency language in.
Yes.
In doing so, I remember at one point, several years ago, we were talking about making people move back in the city. And we had kind of a tough time of it. We had people who came here and said they had lived outside the city for 30 years. And it was a hard time for some people to consider that they might have to do that. I remember that because that was an approach we were taking at one point. Councilor Fenton and I were at the forefront of that. And we had a hearing, and the hearing didn't go that well, shall we say. And after that, we said, well, maybe we should just do it from this point forward kind of thing. Have we been consistently doing the from this point forward logic on these contracts? That?
Yes, we have, Councilor. Yes.
So so this contract that's before us now, the district chiefs, is it in line with the from this point forward kind of logic?
It is, yes.
It is. This has been a highly charged contract because of, you've heard, it's been mentioned, there's a lawsuit, et cetera. This one has had a lot of attention on it. And, but as you presented to us tonight, I know Councilor Hurst may take exception to this and for good reason. I'm not sure exactly all he would want in it, but do you feel that it's consistent with what we've been approving here with the contracts that you keep presenting to us?
Yes, it is. It is. Yes.
Thank you.
Councilor Hurst.
Let me just clarify. I'm sorry, Councilor Walls. The difference is that these people are in violation already. The rest of the contracts that we've approved over the years, they were not in violation of the residency requirement. So it's easy to put together a collective bargaining agreement. Not easy, certainly work, but it's easier to put together a collective bargaining agreement where residency at the outset is not applicable, where residency never applied. In this particular issue, they were subjected to the residency requirement by the ordinance. And so the law department believes that they were in violation of the ordinance. The administration Bill Mahoney believes that they were in violation of the ordinance. And so this simply rewards those who have been in violation of the ordinance, 5 district chiefs, with a new contract that grandfathers them in. This is not by any stretch even closely related to what has been done in the past as far as I'm concerned.
Councilor Walsh and then Councilor Fenton.
Explained that we would take a look at this and take into consideration the unfairness over the years of the residency requirement. I think the district chiefs have done their job. They've done what the city has asked them to do in their capacity. You have the arbitration that said they don't have to live in the city. They can live within a 10-mile radius, I think you said. And Councilor Williams and other people referred to it that some people are doing the right thing and living in the city, but other people, they're saying they live in the city and they don't live here. There's just been so much basic unfairness regarding the whole residency issue, and there's no compliance, and I think it's a wonderful idea to have a compliance officer. There's been no compliance. That I think that the fire chiefs, their service to the city is being undermined by the fact there's been so much confusion with this issue, and I think we should put it behind us. I think we should go from this point forward. Look at the concessions that have been made with this. Let's accept the conditions and the concessions and move forward and end this issue and go with the progress that has been made with the residency requirement, which is a victory. And I hope it passes.
Councilor Fenton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I share a similar sentiment to that of Councilor Walsh, and with all due respect, I do disagree with some of what Councilor Hirsch said about the prior contracts that we've ratified having exclusively membership that was in compliance with city residency requirements. Unfortunately, I know that to not be the case. We've done UFCW in this chamber. That's the DPW workers, and I don't think anybody here can sit with a straight face and say that everybody that's a member of that very vast union has complied with the residency requirement over the course of the last few decades that it's been enforced. We've also ratified, as Attorney Mahoney said, over a dozen other contracts that have agreed to grandfather in existing employees. So to Councilor Walsh's point, while I'm saddened by the fact that we didn't achieve compliance over the course of the last several decades, that has left this body with certain parameters for decisions that it can make in the interest of public policy, in the interest of fairness, and in the interest of moving forward with effective collective bargaining agreements that make sense for future generations of city employees and city councilors. And I'm supportive of this contract. I'm supportive of it because it gives us all future hires in perpetuity to be residents of the city. As Councilor Allen pointed out, that's consistent with every other contract that's come before us wherein the city has exempted existing employees. So I don't like that we have to do it, but we do, and we have, and I think that we should continue to until we get this problem fixed once and for all.
Councilor Ash.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm of the opinion, I guess, that government is rarely a better perfect. Clearly, we're never ever going to agree on contracts or ordinances or agreements of any kind altogether. We're all going to have, or wish that there were elements in it that aren't. But I think our job is looking forward and what we should do, not trying to correct things we don't control or don't have any control over. But we do have control over where this is going now. And we've corrected what was an obvious issue. And going forward, we're not going to have that issue anymore. We can't, as Councilor Williams pointed out earlier, the firefighters contract that addresses 6 or 7 that should have been included as, again, an example of not being perfect. But let's do our job and correct it, as we are doing, and we have time and time again with these contracts and paid some heavy attention towards residency. Let's do it again. Let's do it right. Let's do it going forward, and let's pass this tonight.
Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to kind of figure out how we got here to this point, Mr. Mahoney. The 1987 arbitration, it clearly kind of, I guess, left some room open that, we're kind of talking about tonight. But can you answer me when the council passed that residency ordinance originally? Do you know the date of that?
Residency has been going back to the 60s.
Right.
And I want to just clarify that 1987 arbitration order was between the city and the IAFF, not between the fire chiefs, but with the IAFF, with that 3158 language that we've been talking about. But the issue's been going on since the 60s, I believe.
But when has the council been more, I guess, proactive in addressing it in the form of legislation is what I'm asking.
I know that when I got here in 2009, we began having some pretty serious discussions about residency, many of them with Councilor Fenton and Councilor Allen.
I guess what I'm struggling with today is the fact that when these district chiefs, they signed on for the job, they were aware of a clause that stated they had to live in the city of Springfield. Correct?
I think they would have been aware, but they would have been aware that it had not been enforced. So you take the job and they hadn't been enforced for years, for decades actually.
Okay, so who takes the hit for that?
I don't have an answer. I can just tell you this probably goes back to the 80s.
Okay, and is that because of the arbitration that was?
No, it's not because of that arbitration. I think that's just been the practice, and maybe because these employees all came out of a bargaining unit, IFF. They all came out of that unit, and there was no requirement other than the 3158, which said you had to live within 10 miles of the city. And if you wanted someone to be your district chief, that was kind of the deal. You already bought your house. If you're living, whether you're living in the city or living out of the city, you're within 10 miles. You got promoted, and I don't think anybody asked anybody to do anything different.
All right. Well, I still stand here, still kind of baffled at how, we could kind of circumvent the very thing that is we consider residency, in the sense of saying that, because these people were not aware of the totality of residency and what that entails, then they can somehow pass the law, essentially. And now we have a lawsuit outside of these chambers going on that has a perception to that as well, right? So if residency, if that gets upheld in court, then we're left to in a very weird situation that this body, if we approve this contract tonight, and that's just not a stance I'm willing to take, because I kind of want to be on the right side of the law, and saying that again, I have the inclination that the court will uphold. Of course, I don't know, but with that, I rather vote this contract down if in court that is going to be the case. And that's, I'm just not hearing a strong enough case to support this contract tonight. Thank you.
Councilor Edwards.
Like a coin, fairness is two-sided. And anytime we invoke the argument of fairness, we have to recognize that it would be, I'm not going to argue the fairness of forcing somebody who's given so much to the city having to come back. But you also have to recognize, when you make that argument, the other side of the coin, which is the unfairness of all those people who were never given the opportunity to be deputies because they didn't move back into the city, or because they were excluded in a system that was not fair from the start.
Yeah.
I've got a brother-in-law who every holiday gets drunk, or most holidays gets drunk, who lives in Munson, Mass., and generally will tell me that 30 years ago he applied to be a fireman, and how the system was rigged against him because he was white and they had to reserve positions for a black officer. What I explained to him, whether I'm in a good mood or not, generally is that if you go down the Hall of Fame that recognizes the valor of firemen and you don't see men of color on the wall, it's not because men of color weren't willing to die for the property or the lives of other people, but they just weren't allowed the opportunity to be firemen. So I can gladly appreciate his continued dismay for how he was treated 30 years ago. But once again, when we start to talk about fairness, you have to kind of recognize the other side of the coin is for so many years when these people were in these positions violating an ordinance that they signed a contract for employment that suggested they had to move into the city, and nobody knows, and they all came up through the ranks. So they knew they had already been schooled in whether or not it was something that was going to be enforced. So I just want to point that out. And the other thing that I would like to just kind of point out or say to my colleagues is I'd like to take this opportunity to plant the seed of the need for a compliance officer. For 7.5 years, I've been monitoring the hiring of minorities, residents, and women for all municipal construction in the city of Springfield. My colleague's been on the committee with me for now 2 years. I believe for the 3 years. For the 4 years before that, it was my colleague Bud Williams. And the one thing that's been consistent through that whole process is that we need a compliance officer. And this is another example of the compliance officer who can go onto site and tell us whether our residents and our minorities and our women in the city of Springfield are getting a fair shot at construction jobs. The same job title would also make sure that the compliance laws around employment of our residents, women, and minorities in the city of Springfield is also enforced. So at some future meeting, when that subject comes up, whether it's something that's initiated from the corner office or whether it's something that we put forward, recognizing how the statute is written, that we cannot fund a position without the support of the corner office, please give consideration to supporting and recognizing the need for compliance and somebody to monitor the compliance. Thank you.
Councilor Twiggs.
It's too bad we can't add to the
Mr. President, I can't help but agree with my colleague, Councilman Edwards, and I think Councilman Williams has also spoke on this earlier. We have to have some way of policing compliance, and we send this message to the corner office that we've got to have somebody placed in that position. I don't want to say the last person I remember because the person passed away, but God, let's get a compliance officer. Now, I had risen earlier to allow, yeah, well, I didn't want to call his name. For crying out loud, you know I knew it was Herman. But he got the son there. Cognizant of that fact, Councilman Williams. You know, I rose earlier to allow a person from the who has represented the fire department for other unions for many years. I stated emphatically I have not always agreed, but I think it's only fair that I allow Attorney Kevin Coyle to speak through me to this body. This is a very important issue relative to these district chiefs and this district chief union. But I'd like to hear what he's saying. I'd like to reserve some thoughts on it until after he speaks, if you allow it, Mr. President.
Without objection, we will allow Attorney Coyle
Kevin
to
Coyle.
address. It's an objection on the floor. Attorney Coyle will not be allowed to speak. Attorney Shea.
There's been a lot of, obviously, discussion back and forth, and I think both sides have made valid arguments. No question that Councilor Hurst's position is accurate, and there's no question that Councilor Walsh's position is accurate. The problem that we've got here is we've got two wrongs, and we're trying to make one side right. The entire length of time that these gentlemen took the job and lived outside of the city, it was fully known by the city that that was going on. And to the point of Bud Williams, if we had a compliance officer, it would have been corrected early on. But here we are way down the road some number of years later, and we're on the verge of the third attempt at getting a contract. And one side is saying, wait a minute, we're now going to decide to enforce a right that we had way back when this started. Now, if you don't enforce your rights, you sort of lose the right to enforce that right. And we've got two sides here both doing something wrong. They knew they should have stayed here, and we knew they weren't here. And it isn't until tonight that all of a sudden we're going to drop the hammer and say, well, you know what? We knew this was going on, but tonight's the night you got to come back. That isn't fair. It isn't right. And it doesn't get us off the subject. There's been a conscientious effort to try to rectify the situation and bring it in line. And I'm sure out of the number of those officers, there's 5 or 6 or whatever numbers, and in the next couple of years, some of them are going to retire. And it's rapidly going to correct itself. But nobody here should take the position that we're going to uproot a family and move them back here because we now decide to enforce a right that we could have enforced when they took the job. So we have to apply equity, and everyone that's spoken is talking about applying equity here tonight, both sides. But in this particular case, where both sides have done a wrong, we're going to have to be Solomon and take a sword down the middle. And I think that the fair way, the equitable way, and the right way to do this is for the council to approve this contract. It's the last block we've got in this series, and after that, we should have no more of these issues coming up here forever. And we should get the compliance officer. We wouldn't be having this discussion. But let's not have the discussion to get the compliance officer that we should have had and then penalize a group of people because we didn't get on their case. It wouldn't be fair if we did it to anybody in this room. So let's get this thing passed. Let's get these people their raises. They're doing the job, whether they lived here or they didn't live here. And let's move on, and we've corrected the situation going forward. That's what the council is supposed to do, correct wrongs so we move forward properly.
Councilor Hurst.
Thank you. And Councilor Twiggs, I meant to object, but I think the purpose of me objecting was that I don't find it fair to have Attorney Coyle, who represents the bargaining unit, to come up and address the body, and nobody else from the other side to be able to address the body. So I don't mind if Attorney Coyle speaks, but I think he should only speak if somebody else is going to give the opposite side of the coin. And I'm not 100% sure that Bill Mahoney has done so as zealously as someone who had stake in the other side would have done or would do. So if that individual is out here, I don't mind having them come up and speak. But my final point, and it really just goes to what Councilor Shea was saying, I think it's easy to look at the district chiefs who are in violation as the victims. And those are not the individuals who I see as the victims. I see those who have stayed in the city and complied with the residency requirement as the victims, who have decided that they're going to invest in this city as the victims. The lieutenants, the captains who have said, you know what, I believe in this city, I'm going to stay in this city. And they have not been promoted because those jobs have been given to the district chiefs who live outside of the city. Those are the individuals who I see as the victims.
Councilor Rook.
Mr. President, thank you. We keep going around on different issues with the collective bargaining, and the role of the council is to decide whether the contract is fair and whether or not we want to approve the percentages or not. It's for the position, not the person. And I understand my colleagues' passion and several of them. Here's another irony to the whole situation. Half of those district chiefs live in the city. Half of them don't. In fairness, what do we do? It's a question of fairness and progress. In this contract that come up tonight, and Bill Mahoney's done a great job, and the mayor's done a good job, many of my colleagues have done an outstanding job pushing this issue. Tonight, the decision before us is whether or not we're going to approve the contract, not whether or not we agree with the person who's in the position. Because these gentlemen are going to be leaving at some point down the road, and new district chiefs are going to come in. So you can't punish those that live in the city and can't get the raise, or prevent people who may hold these positions down the road when they retire. I don't think anybody who's in that position now who lives outside the city fights any less harder than the person who lives in the city. And that's something we have to realize, is that these gentlemen and these women put their lives on the line for us. And you talk about the different disasters that affected the city, and I promised Councilor Hurst I wouldn't use any of my lines. And
We want to hear it. Go ahead. Give it.
There's a gentleman in this room tonight who responded to the gas explosion. Had a loss of hearing.
Who was that? Yeah.
Had a loss of hearing and fought harder as everybody else did. So the question of fairness is, it's the position, not the person. And I was urge my colleagues to be very fair when they vote tonight. I'm going to support this because I think it's fair, and I believe in the district chiefs, and I believe that what we've done so far is in the right direction of progress. And the next contract might give us a little more leeway and a little more stake. But I don't think we hold something up because we didn't get everything we wanted. And everybody has an opportunity, and I think that's the lesson that we vote on this tonight. And I hope it's a favorable vote. So thank you very much.
Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll say this to end off on, it kind of stakes where we are today, just in the essence that I believe the intention of this residency ordinance or clause or whatever you want to call it was more so to be a black and white issue, and that had very clearly defined outlayers. And today I feel like it's more, there's room for gray. And that was kind of representative in the last contract that we voted for tonight. Now, I'm from the school of belief where if something is written on paper, you follow it. And Whether or not that's enforced is, I mean, that's like me saying, if I have to dumb it down for, just to give a metaphor, it's like me at my last place of employment. They have a clause that stated that if you don't have your driver's license within your probationary period, you could get let go. So if I then did not get my license during that probationary period, they could have said, Marcus, we'll give you a week, we'll give you 6 months, but I mean, that's additional leeway that we're giving, and then that's it. I mean, I'm just from the school of belief that if it's written on paper, I don't care if it is enforced or not, I'm going to follow it just to be on the safe side. And that's where I come from. And I know the fire department and the chiefs, they all do an exceptional job, whether it be from Ward 1 to Ward 8 throughout the city. But this is how the cookie crumbles. And like I said, there's an implication out there from a lawsuit that has not been decided upon yet. And I do not feel comfortable being on the wrong side of that, so have it that it's decided that the residency clause is upheld. And that's where I'm coming from.
Councilor Gomez.
So what if it's not? What if it's not?
I have a question for Mr. Pagula. And then for Mr. Mahoney also, Mr. Mahoney. If this contract is approved today, what does that do with the lawsuit that's going on at the that's being, you know what I'm talking about? Sorry, what's being heard right now at court with the 10 individuals against the contract?
That's the type of thing that gets into attorney-client privilege and work product, because it involves my impressions and my opinions. And as a matter of fact, sitting on my desk right now is a motion that's been filed that I'm trying to respond to. And I'd be more than willing to talk, obviously, in executive session. But the only thing that, in terms of out of executive session, that I would say is I think there's a little confusion on one legal point that I can clear up. There's a difference between having a valid ordinance and enforcing it against an individual. So it is the position of the law department that that ordinance is valid. I am confident that there's no doubt that's a valid ordinance. That's not the issue that seems to be holding people back. The issue seems to be enforcing the ordinance. That's a much different situation and involves an analysis, case by case, of each individual, when they came on the force, when they were promoted, what was the language in the statute, what was the language in the ordinance, what was the language in the collective bargaining agreement. There's so many variables that you're never going to solve that issue involving those individuals by passing some legislation. It's just never going to happen. The legislation that you've got in front of you is the best thing that you could do going forward here. If the concern is enforcement, that's not something you're going to solve by any legislation or any contract. That's going to be solved as we go forward and as people retire and people move forward. So if you want to go into executive session, I can talk more about the lawsuit, but I don't want to talk about my strategies.
So it's fair to say that we have, when it pertaining that lawsuit, you have some due diligence and there's still work to be done when it comes to that situation, which involves this contract.
This contract is not part of the
lawsuit.
The lawsuit involves the application of the ordinance and the contracts that were in place and the ordinances that were in place and the individuals who were in those positions and when they started and what was the language and what applies to each of them. Okay. Each of those people would be entitled to a hearing, and those would be the situations where what happens at those hearings or any lawsuits afterwards that would be the subject of discussions in executive session.
I have something to clear up with Mr. Mahoney. Just a couple questions. I know just a few moments ago we accepted the collective bargaining agreement for the other union.
Yep.
And we stipulate in that contract after July 1st that for 10 years, the rest of the individuals that do come in are grandfathered in and don't have to live within the city limits, correct?
The current employees are, those hired on or after July 8th have to live in the city for the next 10 years.
For the next 10 years,
Yes.
but the people or the firefighters that are in the union now that don't live with us in the city limits don't have to comply because they're grandfathered in.
Right, right.
Okay. These district chiefs that are not in compliance at the moment, if they were to say tomorrow, and this is completely a scenario, I know they're not going to retire tomorrow, but if they were to retire tomorrow and the next person in line were some of these individuals that got grandfathered in, how does that work?
They're in a different bargaining unit, so they're going to be promoted into the language you have in front of you, promoted into this bargaining unit after July 1st, 2017. They're subject to the ordinances. So they would be subject to the ordinances.
So what I'm understanding is that from this point on of this contract with the district chiefs, if these gentlemen were to retire, because we continuously say that sooner or later they're going to retire, and we're going to let in a whole bunch of other guys that live in the city. But so what if those guys? Okay, so you're telling me those guys won't get hired for that position?
No, I'm telling you. So if I'm following
the ones that are next in line,
right.
I know it's a different union,
Yep.
and that's a different contract.
Right.
So when they are hired or appointed to become district chiefs,
they have to live in the
they
city.
have to move there, even though they're grandfathered in, and we give them a slap on the wrist before and say, hey, you guys didn't have to, you got grandfathered in. Is that same conversation, we're going to come back and we're going to have 5 more district chiefs that don't live in the city?
No.
How can you guarantee that?
Well, I'm just telling you that's what the language in the contract.
I understand.
It's the language in the contract, and that's what we're going to be telling the employees when they get promoted. They have a year to get into the city.
If we cannot guarantee that once they're retired, that the individuals that will fill their spot will move their families, because we want them, and I understand, to move your whole life from wherever it is that you live into the city limits, no matter the distance, and then, we let them, we grandfather them in, they retire, these next people that get promoted, we're going to have the same system. So it's like, I'm feeling like we're not going to get what we want for a decade or two.
No, I disagree with you, Counselor.
If I may, in terms of that compliance issue,
Yeah.
The advice that I would have is that every one of those people that gets promoted signs a letter understanding that it's a condition of their promotion that they live in the city. And then you'll have a letter in writing. And we do that now, like with the district chiefs in the police department. We don't have that with these district chiefs, but that would be a difference that would give you the guarantee that you're concerned about.
So there's no piece of paper to date that says that they have to live in the city. It just says it on an ordinance from 1995 or whatever the case may be.
When they were promoted, there was no letter for
they
them
didn't-
to sign.
They didn't sign anything binding
They just
them to
signed the
that
civil
contract.
service list saying they want the job.
So what
But
what I'm understanding, that there's no signature binding them that they have to live in the city, just
He can't say it no
civil
clear.
service. That's what I'm understanding.
My point is, it's easier, you asked about compliance.
Yeah, yeah.
So here would be their signature saying that they understood when they got the promotion, they were going to move in. And if they're not moving in, that's pretty good evidence that they shouldn't continue in that job.
Thank you.
That's interesting.
Just to go back to Mr. Allen, Councilor Allen, you said that there's some money of some free cash that might be available. I think this body should be asking not for 1, but 2 compliance officers with some of that free cash and creating this system to make sure that these individuals comply. I want to thank all of the fire chiefs and the firefighters that do their job every single day. You know, it's to be commended. And like I said earlier, there's difficult decisions that we have to make. Thank you. Thank you for answering my questions.
Councilor Fenton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to echo Councilor Gomez's sentiments with respect to the compliance officer. This council, not once, not twice, but 3 times has passed resolutions urging this administration to appoint a residency compliance commission and a residency compliance officer consistent with the municipal ordinances. It's never happened. So I continue to urge for that to happen. I hope that we do get there, and we'll be happy to support any initiative that's in that direction. I made a bunch of notes here about what I wanted to say before we voted on this, because there was a lot of really great points made. I'm not going to say most of it because it's already been iterated by my colleagues. But I do want to say that I'm really pleased and proud of the discussion that we're having here today, because it's clear that everybody in this room supports residency for municipal employees. We have a lot of employees. I haven't come across a single position where I thought to myself, gee, that person should not live in the city. It's a good policy, and it's one that I've spent the lion's share of the last 8 years on the council fighting for. And that's why I believe that this is a good contract, because it ensures it for us for the future for this collective bargaining agency. In closing, I just would like to indicate a little bit of a word of caution, because there's been a lot of discussion about this lawsuit and the future and making folks move into the city. And I would just want to impress on my colleagues that we don't know what the results of that litigation will be. We don't know whether the plaintiffs will be successful or whether they will not be. We do know that there are plenty of very damaging facts to the city's case, particularly that we haven't had any aspect of compliance with this unit for several decades. We've dealt with this in other union contexts with collective bargaining. There's no telling what a court will do with that fact pattern. And additionally, there's no telling what an arbitrator would do if this decision ended up going to arbitration. This union has taken off the 1.5% raise that they were asking for having future hires live in the city. That is a huge bargaining chip of theirs. That substantially strengthens the city's position. And in my experience in looking at this and knowing the very limited things that I do know about the case that's in Superior Court and the likelihood that this ends up in arbitration, I'm not sure we're going to get any better than this deal. And I fear that if we don't approve this deal, that the next thing that comes before us is going to be an arbitration award for a raise that doesn't have the same provisions for all future members of this collective bargaining agency. And the only people that we're going to be able to point to if we do end up with that type of a circumstance are the folks that didn't want to approve this contract tonight.
Councilor Twiggs.
President, I can't help but to tell you I've heard some very interesting arguments on this, and of course I went into this with a set mind in terms of how I was going to vote. I speak to Councilman Hurst with respect to not approving me to allow Kennedy Coy. I certainly well understand your position, and I tend to agree with it. Sorry about that, brother man. But the fact of the matter is this has been an issue that has come before us time and time again. And let me just say, I'm opposed to the fact that the fire chief is not in compliance. I'm definitely opposed. But the argument is pervasive that we shouldn't necessarily vote on compliance tonight, we should vote on the contract. Boy, that made a lot of sense to me. Mr. President, I have to publicly state I'm going to change my vote on this, primarily because I want to get this off of our desk. And I think I want to impress upon district chiefs in the future, if you want to be in leadership within the fire department, you got to be in compliance. I mean, we don't have to have a compliance officer for you to know. It's the law. The law said you have to be in compliance with the residency. Well, I appreciate the mayor's position on this. He's not approving somebody's contracts or say they ain't with him, but that's right. But the fact of the matter is we know. I don't want these guys taking these big salaries and moving to Hamden and East Longmeadow and what have you. I want this money spent here. That's what I have to do. I live in the inner city. Pay taxes every day on everything I get. And I say to you, Mr. President, I have to change my vote. Thank you.
Councilor Edwards.
I just want to say I respect everybody's opinion, and however you vote your conscience. We should all take the move and vote how we feel is most beneficial to the taxpayers.
And what Kenny's been laying on me.
I just want to finally say that we don't really have to solve the problem. We just have to make a vote tonight. I can offer several solutions from lawsuits that we passed ordinances before that have been struck down in the courts. Whether an arbitrator rules against us in the future, that's fine too. You're looking at somebody who retired with 21 years of state service, is an absentee member who's now getting 34% of the cap of 80% that I could have if I had stayed with the state. The unfortunate part of that is the fact that if I had continued to try to strive to get that 80%, because it was a union job and my positions and times and schedules based on seniority, my wife who got put on second shift Tuesdays and Wednesdays for days off with me on Saturdays and Sundays on first shift, then I was going to have to
That's got to do with it.
So it was my choice to eat peanut butter and tuna fish. And I was spending time with my wife.
Yeah.
It's the same thing for these deputies. The ones who want to keep those jobs can come back into the city. They can establish residency. They don't have to bring their families. They can. There's a whole lot of options. They can go to court and sue.
I gotta have one.
Whatever the choice we make, we don't have to solve this.
I'm always moving the question.
We just have to vote tonight and we think this is a good contract and we want to do it or not. And me personally, I'm happy to go on record and say that I would be happy to vote for more money for the individuals in or out of the city. But the whole lot for me, it's not the money, and it's not the conditions, it's simply that one issue of residency. And it's not fair, in my opinion, for 5 officers who stay in the city to be here and the rest of them not. And that was by their choice. And there are officers that are behind them in the rank and file that are willing to take these positions if they choose to retire. If they feel like whatever their resolution is, they feel like they don't want to move their families, they don't. They just have to bring themselves into the city and establish residency. And if they're going to retire in 3 or 4 years, they got the option to retire early.
Councilor Williams.
Yeah, I'll be real brief. I am not going to support this. I didn't support it before. I'm not going to support it now. My reason is still the same. There's a court case going on. And I'm going to stand with the administration and with the mayor on this. The mayor took a hard line on this. The mayor took a hard line on this. He supported the firefighters 648, but he's done some other things with the deputies and the commissioner. The mayor took a very hard position. Sometimes, like Councilor Edwards is saying, you have to do what you have to do. Now, these are great guys. They fight fires, the hurricane, first responders. I agree with all that. But to say that now, residency, which your city solicitor says the opinion of the administration is that is a valid ordinance. Now, compliance is something else. That's a valid ordinance. Now, Mr. Mahoney, may I ask you one more question? No, you good. No. Just so your opinion was that the administration's opinion is that this is a valid city residency ordinance.
Yes.
And what is your opinion?
It's a valid ordinance.
It's a valid city ordinance.
Yes.
Now, the compliance piece is the court will decide whether it's up or down. I don't know. I would rather for the court to decide and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But here to what we're saying. The administration is saying we had a valid city ordinance, and the mayor was prepared to actually do what he had to do. And I want to commend the mayor for standing up and doing what he had to do publicly. So I'm going to side with the administration on this. Sometimes, most times I don't, and a lot of times I do. But I'm going to side with the administration as we have a valid city ordinance, and the court's going to make the final determination.
Councilor Shea.
Yeah, the issue is not whether or not the ordinance is valid. We know the ordinance is valid. The issue is the application of the ordinance and the fairness of it. And the argument that I made before is that everyone knew this back on day one. And both sides have gone along, one side not moving in and the other side not complying. And for the city, at this point, to decide it's going to drop the hammer, that's what's at issue. That's what's unfair. We don't dispute the ordinance. We dispute the application of the fairness and the policy at this juncture.
Mr. President, please move the question.
It's a motion to move the question. Second. Seconded by Councilor Edwards. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Ratification, Mr. Clerk. Roll call.
On ratifying the collective bargaining agreement, Councilor Edwards.
No.
No. Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rook. Yes. Councilor Gomez.
No.
No. Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Marcus Williams.
No.
No. Councilor Ash.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Twigs.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Shea.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Hurst.
No.
No. Councilor Bud Williams.
No.
No. Councilor Ramos.
No.
No.
The order is approved.
The order is...
Mr. Clerk.
As a point of clarification, the body didn't suspend Rule 19, so it requires 2 readings. So we'll be back before the body at the next regular meeting.
It will require another step at the next regular meeting.
When you go home and your house in flames, you'll see this people.
Second.
Not like poor Mo.
We've already taken a vote.
Second.
We've already taken the vote.
Just take the vote again.
I did not ask for Rule 19 to be suspended, and so we will take up the matter at the next. We'll have another reading at the next meeting.
Mr. President, just in fairness, I'd like the record to reflect that I think that's a little unfair to miss that administrative invocation of that rule and then to, after the vote was taken, suggest that that was somehow an intent of this body. It was not.
You mean we'd have to vote on this all over
I'm
again?
sorry now, we got to...
Councilor Rook. I'll defer to the clerk.
Again, if the body wants to reconsider it, the motion for reconsideration has to be heard at the next meeting. That's the way reconsideration works.
So just for a point of clarification, because of a administrative noncompliance, we have to vote on this issue again?
Rule 19 states that all orders that require the expenditure of money have to be read two times. Usually, the council votes at the behest of the president to suspend Rule 19. That didn't happen in this case. Therefore, it has to be read a second time at the next meeting.
There's no way tonight we can correct that?
Again, I'd have to, the way it normally happens procedurally is that it happens prior to the vote.
Correct.
Again, the president is the parliamentarian, so if it's the preference of the body to have that vote after the vote on the item, I wouldn't have any input in that one way or the other.
Okay. So is there any way for the council to file a motion to have the suspension not to vote on this and disagree with the president on it, or is that it?
Again, the president is the parliamentarian, so as far as the way the parliamentary rules work, the president's got the final say on the matter. There's no specific language in our rules that say to have a session before or after the vote on the actual item. However, the past practice has been that Rule 19 suspension vote happens before the ultimate vote, and therefore, I'd assume that if you're going to do something different to that, and that would require some
So
consensus
when is
from
the
the
next
body.
time this could come up? Because
The next regular city council meeting is the 19th. Yes, the 19th.
What is it?
And so, Mr. Clerk,
The 9th of.
and so we can still suspend Rule 19 for the matter.
Yes, that would be up to the parliamentarian, correct.
All right, so in fairness, I will allow the motion to suspend Rule 19. However, this does have to be a unanimous vote. If there is a single no vote, then it will have to require another reading at the next meeting. So all those in favor of suspension of Rule 19 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, we will have a second reading at the next council meeting. Councilor Shane.
On that issue, Mr. President, the fact that we didn't take Rule 19 first is that the president running the meeting, it's his job to call Rule 19 when it's supposed to be called. They have not called it, we voted, and then to realize you made the mistake, and then to back the mistake up by throwing your hands up in the air and say that I'm making the call is not right. It's your responsibility to make that call before we vote. You didn't do that. Now the question comes up, and now you're back. Now you're supporting the position that puts this in jeopardy.
Councilor, Rule 19 states that all financial orders are to be read in two separate readings. As a matter of convenience and as a matter of courtesy, we usually we usually suspend Rule 19 for financial orders. However, it is not a requirement that we would suspend Rule 19 for all financial orders. But we were all given an opportunity to vote on Rule 19. The motion failed. We will read it a second time at the next meeting. And because that's what it states in the rules.
Rule 19. Just one
Councilor Allen?
objection on Rule 19.
And I believe another question, Mr. President. You said it doesn't always have to be taken. I believe you just said that. So why did it have to be taken in this case if we had already passed the point in which you would say, please suspend Rule 19?
Well, as a courtesy to my colleagues, because they did want this, they did want me to or to at least ask to suspend Rule 19. I allowed for a vote on Rule 19.
There's an unfairness.
So you couldn't just rectify it yourself by just saying, let's start again?
It's not be objected to.
I'm just asking. I don't
understand the question.
Once we realized that the mistake had been made, which you usually call for that, why couldn't we just go vote Rule 19 and then vote the thing again? What?
Well, I guess it doesn't really matter what order we take it in, as the clerk stated.
Right.
And so we could have taken the vote to suspend Rule 19 prior to or after the vote.
So since we've already taken the vote, could we vote to suspend Rule 19
We just
now?
did.
We just did.
And that has to be unanimous?
It has to be unanimous
If
according
it's
to our rules.
after?
Either way, if it's before or after, it has to be unanimous.
Thank you.
And I'll just say for the record, when you didn't suspend Rule 19, I just assumed that we were going to take two votes on this.
Thank you. Next item, Mr. Clerk, item number 13.
Item number 13 is an order to transfer money from free cash to the OPEB trust in the amount of $494,794.
Thank you, Mr. President. TJ Plant Capital for the City of Springfield. There's a series of orders that about spending some unexpended free cash. Just to kind of refresh, we did a snow and ice deficit of $166,781 on May 1st. The body authorized us to purchase V-bodies for the Sanders of $65,000 and then $450,000 for police vehicles. Tonight we're asking for 3 votes. One is for the OPEB trust, which is 10% of the certified free cash amount to go towards post-employment benefits for our retirees. And then we have a DPW software permitting system that they're hoping to implement and a clerk scanning project. So all in all, that would leave a remaining balance of $3.4 million, $3,415,494 left to be determined how to divide it up between stabilization reserves and the pension reserve that the council set up last year. So with that, the OPEB one is just, as I mentioned, it's $494,794 to be transferred. It's 10% to be moved into the trust account that was established.
Are there any questions from the council? Seeing none, All those in favor of suspension of Rule 19 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
On approving the transfer, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rook. Absent. Councilor Gomez. Absent. Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Marcus Williams.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Ash. Yes. Councilor Twigs. Absent. Councilor Shay.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Bud Williams.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Ramos.
Yes. All those, when sufficient, order is approved.
Item number 14 is a order to transfer money from free cash to the special purpose fund in the amount of $244,000.
Thank you, Mr. President. This transfer will allow us to digitize and scan in the 1.5 million vital records in the clerk's office and 45,000 property plot cards in the assessor's office. We're hoping just to streamline the way we do business and make sure we have that stuff's available and backed up, and so it's no longer in paper files.
Sure, these cups are
Any questions from the council?
double them, because they leak. Yeah, triple them.
Seeing none, all those in favor of suspension of Rule 19 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 15, Mr. Clerk. I'm sorry, roll call.
On approving the transfer, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rook. Absent. Councilor Gomez.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Marcus Williams.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Ash. Yes. Councilor Twigs. Absent. Councilor Shay.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Bud Williams.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Ramos.
Yes, more than sufficient, order is approved.
Item number 15 is an order to transfer money from free cash to the PayGo Capital Fund in the amount of $111,875.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a transfer that will allow the Department of Public Works to implement a new right-of-way software. Right now, we use Acela in numerous departments. DPW has not been able to participate, but due to a recent upgrade, or the software is now made available, it'll allow us to coordinate better with utilities, citizens, and departments, and the way the right-of-way is managed. The hope is to get it passed and then start getting the implementation of the new software going so we can get it implemented within 6 months.
Any questions from the council? Seeing none, all those in favor of suspension of Rule 19 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
On approving the transfer, Councilor
Yes.
Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rook.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Gomez.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Marcus Williams.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Ash. Yes. Councilor Twigs, absent. Councilor Shay.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Bud Williams.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Ramos.
Yes, more than sufficient, order is approved.
Item number 16 is a bond authorization for an MSBA ARP project in the amount of $3,796,555.
Thank you, Mr. President. There are going to be 3 bond authorizations coming before the body tonight. This is the first one. It's for the Elliott Elementary and Elliott Middle. The total cost of the city is going to be $759,311, with MSBA picking up $3,037,244 for a total of just under $3.8 million project.
Any questions from the council? Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. TJ, just a quick question. This is for both the older Elliott and the newer Elliott?
Yeah, so the Thomas Elliott Elementary is getting roof replacement and accessibility upgrades, and Elliott Middle is getting windows and doors and accessibility upgrades.
Well,
so both of them are part of the...
This definitely makes me happy. I mean, I'm an alum of Elliott, and they needed a roof back when I was there, so thank you.
Any questions from the council? Seeing none, all those in favor of suspension of Rule 19 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
On authorizing the bond, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rook. Yes. Councilor Gomez.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Marcus Williams.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, Counselor Ash. Yes, Counselor Twiggs, absent Counselor Shay.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Bud Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Ramos.
Yes, more than sufficient. Order is approved.
Item number 17 is a bond authorization for the downtown revitalization project in the amount of $1.5 million.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a second bond authorization that's before the body. What this is, the intent of this is to kind of what we're calling it a downtown refresh, as we're getting the downtown ready for when we open up Union Station and then open up the casino. Is that we have the sidewalks, streets, and landscaping and a wayfinding system in place prior to opening. So it kind of makes it so the downtown is ready and open and looking as good as it should.
Councilor Gomez.
TJ, is there a specific plan that you guys have where all of this money's going?
Yes, I'll defer to the DPW director for that.
Yes.
Good evening, councilors. What we are attempting to do here, MGM is investing about $8 to $8.2 million in off-site roadway, sidewalk, and other enhancements throughout the downtown. So what we were looking at was being able to partner with them in other areas. As examples, up and down Main Street, they're going to be doing wayfinding signs. They're going to be doing striping of the roadway, modifying parking. So what we did was look at it and in the condition of the roadways and says basically from the arch walk working down to Central Street, with the exception of immediate casino area, which MGM is doing, we want to repave Main Street. We want to fix some of the sidewalks that need to be fixed. There is a component in there for wayfinding signs throughout the downtown. MGM has in their contract through the HCA with the city to do 12 of them. This is an additional 50 throughout the downtown area that we're doing. We are, so I can double check here, enhancing all three of the railroad underpasses, Main, Chestnut, and Dwight Street, working with Eversource on lighting, cleaning, upgrades of the sidewalks, as well as additional sidewalk repairs, repairing the tree pits, and installing new dual recycling and trash barrels throughout the downtown.
Councilor Gomez.
Do you guys have like specs of the specific lighting? Are you guys going to be changing the lighting in the downtown from those lamps?
Right now, what we're trying to do with Eversource owns the lights. We're trying to work with them on trying to do some enhancements. We're limited. We are not changing poles. We're limited on what we can do with the fixtures that are there, but we're working with them trying to do a lot of enhancements in the downtown area. Some of the downtown area, a little bit farther to the north, there were some spotlights that were placed, LED spotlights. We're going to be trying to do some of that in some areas as well to be able to get some better lighting.
Because you guys are doing the curbing and the street. Are you guys, or is there a plan to integrate some bike lanes?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, all the way from
Bike lanes.
Because I know we're
beginning
doing
of Main Street,
the construction in
Yes.
the north end. You know, I would like to kind of see that situation
The
go all the
bike
way up.
lanes, as part of the north end Main Street work that's going on right now, there's going to be full bike lanes on that. There is going to be full bike lanes as part of all of this work. It was included in the approved plans from MGM, and what I was hesitating on, we are actually starting Locust Street all the way at the beginning of Main Street, all the way down to Main Street, going through the Union Station area with the bike lanes, and all the way up State Street, and Lyman, Dwight, sections of Worthington are going to be including them as well.
So no Chestnut, just Dwight and Main Street and Lyman?
Right now, yes. We are going to be adding them when we do striping. When we do striping, the city does as we move forward on roads like Chestnut, Springfield, Armory, other streets as we go about our complete streets program in the city, so when we do striping. But specifically for this, we're basically talking about the main downtown area.
All right. No, I was just asking because I know we just recently paved Worthington Street and a couple of those streets, and I know that we had
Congress
put that
as well.
button-
Yes,
Congress
Congress is going to include
So, all
it
right.
as well.
Thank you. Is there any way you can email that to me?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Are there any other questions from the council? Seeing none? All those in favor of suspension of Rule 19, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
On authorizing the bond, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Rook.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Gomez.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Marcus Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ash. Yes, Councilor Twiggs, absent Councilor Shea.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Bud Williams. Yes, Councilor Ramos.
Yes, more than sufficient. Order is approved.
Item number 18 is a bond authorization for downtown police kiosks in the amount of $500,000.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is part of the downtown strategy for the police commissioner. He recently announced that Dwight Street is going to be where a Metro substation is going to be, but in addition to the substation, there's going to be 3 kiosks, possibly a 4th one if we can determine a location. One is going to be on Main and Morris, the other one's going to be on Main and Taylor, and then one's going to be at the Riverfront Park. This bond authorization will allow us to get the design and build them out to the proper specifications.
Councilor Williams.
I'm all for these kiosks all downtown. Is there any, with the spike in crime in all our communities, and I got a meeting on Thursday night with community members, when you talk with the police chief, I mean, we talked about downtown, and I agree with that, but we have a war going on in the city.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll defer to the specifics for the police chief to police commissioner to answer about, but the understanding with the staffing that we've added to the Metro unit, it allows the neighborhood policing initiatives, the C3 initiatives, and all the neighborhood pieces of that policing aspects are still in the neighborhoods and doesn't detract from what's happening in the neighborhoods.
That's great. I agree with some aspects of C3, which are great. But there are other parts of it, we don't have community policing. We don't have community policing. Like you're doing downtown, we have officers actually walking through communities. So at some point in time, I thought I'd ask Chairman Ash if he would talk with the police chief or the police commissioner to see if we can get some kind of, I'm afraid for this summer. I mean, it's going to be a hot summer.
Yeah, no, we've had a few conversations about targeted deployments.
And there's a lot of guns on the street, and I'm not saying you're totally responsible, because I know it starts with ATF and the Attorney General's office, but we have to have a response. Now people are saying all this going on downtown, which is great. We're all for it. But meanwhile, I'm getting caught. What are we going to do up in these communities, in these neighborhoods? This is serious. This is real. This is not the contrast. So, I mean, that's not your job. You're not public
No, I'd be
safety
happy to have
guy.
the conversation. We have them all the time
Yeah,
based upon.
but I'm just, I mean, at least for the next couple of months.
Yeah, so our summer months, when they kick in, there's certainly the overtime that's set aside
And
to do
maybe
targeted deployments in
Overtime
hotspots.
and maybe state police.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yep.
Because I know people are very nervous in my 11th Hampden district, which you had another shooting after the 2 murders, another shooting on Burr Street last night. And Tom can talk about, he can speak to that because he's doing a big project over there. But certainly, I mean, we need to have this conversation sooner than later.
Yep, we agree.
Thank you, TJ.
Any other questions from the council? Seeing none, all those in favor of suspension of Rule 19, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
On authorizing the bond, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Rook.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Gomez.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Marcus Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ash. Yes, Councilor Twiggs, absent Councilor Shea.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Bud Williams. Yes, Councilor Ramos.
Yes, more than sufficient. Order is approved.
Item number 19 is a bond authorization for City Hall remodeling in the amount of $1 million.
So I guess I meant there's 4 bond authorizations tonight, not 3. So The fourth one is our third bite at the apple to try to get the front stairs and then around the side and some work in the back for the renovations of the front steps. It's failed twice, so we're hoping the third time is the charm for us to get it done. It is, we do have issues out there. If you go out and take a look, you can see just how bad the stairs are, the condition the stairs are in. So hopefully we'll be able to get on it and get the design and get the fix done soon.
Councilor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. President. When this came up last year, Councilor Shea and myself actually took a tour of the areas that would be fixed. And I think we're very lucky that there haven't been more accidents when you actually look and see the damage to those steps. And then we have so many different rallies where people are downtown. And, this is really our home, our front door. I am hopeful that tonight that we will be able to pass it because we don't want any more lawsuits, that's for sure. And it's probably deteriorated since you started this discussion.
Yeah, we were hoping to do it last year, but now at least we've been able to cross our fingers and nothing's happened, but now hopefully we'll be able to get it done and move quickly. I know Pete Garvey and his team will be ready to go if the agreement is made. So.
And fix the Campanile at the same time.
It's a little bigger of a price tag, but we're working on it.
Any other questions from the council? Councilor Fenton.
TJ, thank you for pointing out that we voted this down twice before. I asked, I think at the last budget meeting, I don't know if you had a chance to look into it, whether this bond includes any proceeds for preservation of records associated with the clerk's office. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so what I understand is that the vault or the areas where the records are stored are actually under the stairs. So by virtue of doing this project, we'll be able to shore that up.
So no money for the vault, but we will fix the stairs that are on top of the vault.
No, it's all part of the project. So we're going to fix it because we're going to be there shoring up the front steps.
You will go into City Hall, down in the basement, and you will fix the vault?
That's my
I just want to make sure that
That's
we're
my
clear.
understanding.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions from the council?
Yes.
Seeing none. All those in favor of suspension of Rule 19, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
On approving the bond, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Rook.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Gomez.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Marcus Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ash.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Twiggs absent. Councilor Shea.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
No.
No, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Bud Williams.
For the clerk, because of his records, yes.
Yes, Councilor Ramos.
No. More than sufficient. Order is approved.
Item number 20 is to pay a bill of a prior year for the Department of Capital Asset Construction in the amount of $850.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a bill that we received under Mass General Law. If a bill from a prior year comes, we receive it. The City Council has to allow us to pay it, vote to approve it. It's $850 for work done at the Brookings School after the tornado, and was just a bill that we received on 6/30/2016. We're looking for permission to pay the bill.
Any questions from the council? All those in favor of suspension of Rule 19, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
On approving the payment of the bill, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Rook.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Gomez.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Marcus Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ash.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Twiggs absent. Councilor Shea.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Bud Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ramos.
Yes. More than sufficient. Order is approved.
Item number 21 is an order of appropriation for a Marble Street traffic project and eminent domain takings in the amount of $120,202.43.
Councilor Walsh.
I'd like to add, when deliberating this, that in our discussion at the committee meeting, there were no adversarial takings, that this went fairly smoothly. It's not like other situations where the neighbors were upset. This went fairly smoothly. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Just before we start, so item number 22 is actually connected with item 21. Those are the actual orders of takings of the land and the easements.
21 and 22 are related. Good evening.
Good evening, councilors. In 2013, the city received $21.9 million in CDBG-DR funds and began a number of initiatives. One of those projects was the design and construction of the Marble Street extension. For those of you who know, Marble Street is a dead end right now, ends at an existing Springfield Housing Authority housing complex. The proposal of this project is to extend Marble Street out to turn to the north and connect with Central Street, basically where Ashman Street and Morris Street intersection is now. Since that time, the South End Community Center has been moved to the Emerson White Playground, right adjacent to the buildings, the Housing Authority buildings, and the land takings / easements that we need for this project have kind of gone in three phases. Number one, there were properties along Central Street that were presented and voted on to this council back in November that the city has now taken in the old Gemini site, so now that entire site is owned by the city. The remaining properties are what we're discussing this evening, and there will be a vote in the future time on the taking and transfer of land from the Springfield Housing Authority to the city. The Housing Authority has been working for a number of years on getting people out of that antiquated building, so we will be working with them. Oh, I'm sorry, SRA. SHA and SRA, thank you. So we will come back to the council when that land is ready and those apartments are vacant. In front of you tonight, we have three kind of different takings. We have full property takings, partial property takings, and construction easements. The appropriation is for $120,000. There are basically two properties that we're taking in total that are privately owned. It is the same owner. One of them is vacant. One has a house on it. That is for $110,000. The remainder of all of the easements and takings total another $10,000.
Any questions from the council? All those in favor of suspension of Rule 19 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Roll call.
On approving the appropriation, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Rook.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Gomez.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Marcus Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ash. Yes, Councilor Twiggs, absent Councilor Shea.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Bud Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ramos.
Yes, more than sufficient. Order is approved.
You want to take the order of taking now? Or?
Yep.
On approving the order of taking.
All those in favor of suspension of Rule 19 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
On approving the order of taking, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Rook. Yes, Councilor Gomez.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Marcus Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ash. Yes, Councilor Twiggs, absent Councilor Shea.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Bud Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ramos.
Yes, more than sufficient. Order is approved.
Thank you, councilors.
Thank you.
Item number 23 is an order authorizing the mayor to sell a property on Stebbins Street to Lillian Dickerson and Lois Peterson.
Good evening, Council. Bobby Demusas from the Office of Housing here before you for an abutter lot sale to an abutter at West Side Stebbins Street. It's the corner of Stebbins and Quincy, 3,400 square foot lot. The abutters will, they currently actually use it for parking. They will be required to install a driveway and combine it with their parcel.
Any questions from the council? All those in favor of suspension of Rule 19 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
On authorizing the sale, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Rook. Yes, Councilor Gomez. Yes, Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Marcus Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ash.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Twiggs, absent Councilor Shea.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Bud Williams.
Present.
Present. Councilor Ramos.
Yes, more than sufficient. Order is approved.
Item number 24 is an order authorizing the mayor to sell a property on Union Street to Carl Turner.
Another Old Hill property. This is Northside Union, parcel 126. It's a little larger, 7,500 square feet, long-time vacant parcel. The owner has proposed to legally combine it, fence the property, which will be required within 6 months, to provide a garden and side yard and playground for the tenants.
Any questions from the council? All those in favor of suspending Rule 19, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
On authorizing the sale, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Rook. Yes, Councilor Gomez. Yes, Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Marcus Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ash.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Twiggs absent. Councilor Shea.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Bud Williams. Yes, Councilor Ramos.
Yes, more than sufficient. Order is approved.
Thank you, councilors.
Item number 25 is an order authorizing the mayor to transfer a property on East Side Hancock Street, formerly the Brookings School, to Better Homes, Inc.
Mr. President, I will abstain.
Clerk will make a note.
Good evening. My name is Tom Matthews, and I work for the Office of Planning and Economic Development on Tapley Street. This item is in regards to the transfer of the former Brookings School at 363 Hancock Street to Better Homes, Inc. And tonight I have with me Tom Keegan. Sorry, Amy. And Amy Chambers. The property was the subject of an RFP, request for proposal, and after a thorough review process, the review committee is fully recommending the proposal go to of Better Homes, Inc. In the past 4 years, Better Homes, Inc. has completed 5 historic buildings in Springfield and 1 in Northampton, totaling 95 units and putting in over $17 million in construction costs. Better Homes will redevelop the property into 45 mixed-income housing units. There will be 1 and 2 and 3 bedrooms available to low and moderate income housing. The building will feature environmental friendly features and cost-saving features such as solar panels on the roof, well-insulated interior windows, and double glazed windows. The project will preserve the building, which was built in 1925, as well as bringing the new life and improved streetscape to the property. The project has been several financial benefits, one being Better Homes will pay $215,000 for the property and the building. It will be added to the tax rolls for the first time in the property's history and will reduce the property's carrying costs in maintaining the building because it'll be now belong to Better Homes. If you have any questions at this time, please ask us.
Sounds like a good
Are
idea.
there any questions? Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just wondering if the developers have met with the Old Hill Community Council on the matter?
Could you repeat that, please?
I was wondering if the developer had met, or Better Homes has met with the Old Hill Community Council on the matter?
Yes, they have.
And they have approved?
Yes, they have.
Thank you.
Councilor Edwards.
I'd like to kind of give a little information and just lend my support for this project. This site is actually in Maple Heights, Six Corners Neighborhood Council. The new Brookings that was constructed after the tornado is in fact in Old Hill, but the original Brookings built in 1925, the first school I ever attended, is in Maple Heights, Six Corners. The Maple Heights Six Corner Neighborhood Council thoroughly vetted this process. It came before us 2 years ago it at that time, and then we take a second look at it. And we're very confident not only in the quality of the construction and the plans, we're also very confident in management. This is a mixed-use building. Dominantly, the majority of them probably will be subsidized. But what we have found from home cities across all of their projects is the quality and the interaction that they have their management and have with their tenants. And this is huge because one of the things that we're really concerned about was whoever developed the building would not just reap benefits of that and walk away. I have assurances in our council that voted unanimously in support of this project. Another smoke on the wheel of our reformation, so to speak. Many of you, if you haven't had an opportunity to drive up Central Street, please take an opportunity to do that. The values in the neighborhood have been consistently going up. I believe the statistics that would suggest that there has been a drop of crime since the tornado in the neighborhood, and we feel like this project will be a continued benefit to us. So we in the Maple High School neighborhood council has supported this project. We're very eager for this project.
How many? I got some questions. Thank you.
Councilor Ash, and then
Thank you, Mr.
Councilor
President. Just quickly, I've worked closely with Tom and Amy and the Better Homes group, particularly as it relates to the sale of the apartments at the YMCA, which they've purchased last year and have done a wonderful job of managing. So I'm confident that they'll do just as good a job at Brookings, so I'm happy to support it.
Councilor Williams.
Just a couple of questions. Just how many units, Tom, on this? Is this a?
There are
Amy,
45.
And they're
45
market rate
units total.
affordable? What are we, or is it a mixed use?
They're mixed use.
It's a mixed-use project. There will be 5 market rate units in it. We actually found through our research that the market rate rentals in that neighborhood are less than the affordable rentals. And in order to support the development, we had to limit the number of market rate units. However, we are very interested and dedicated to doing additional mixed income units in the future.
Yeah, I think that's a wise idea. And most times I wouldn't support that like that because I know what tends to happen. But what Tom and Better Homes and the reputation they have in terms of Liberty Street, turning that around over there at the YMCA. He's on Oak Grove Avenue. It's a nice project up there. So Better Homes does it the right way. Great reputation, does a great job, and a man of his word. Because a lot of times if you don't have the right management, those things can get out of control very rapidly. Doesn't take very long. But I know with his support and his dedication and his concern that he'll do a great job. So I plan to support this, and Councilman Edwards has vetted it, and that's fine. And finally got a use for, I know we tried once before, the RFP, it didn't work, but hopefully it works, and it's a win-win for you and a win-win for the city. So thanks, Tom, and Amy, you too.
Councilor Walsh.
I would just like to say, Mr. President, that I'm very happy to support this project. My children went to the Brookings School, and I toured it after the tornado, and, that is a very sturdy building. And I was really concerned that it would stay vacant for a really, really long time and that there would not be a use for it. So I have to agree with what everyone's saying tonight, that this is definitely a win-win for the neighborhood. But I wonder, because there's so much property around the Brookings School, and I would assume that you're going to, hopefully, families with children. Have you given any thought to playscapes, recreation in your design? Is that going to be part of it?
So on the site itself, there is a playground that's existing.
Right.
We've actually met with the Parks Department recently because the majority of the land around the site is actually a public park. And we talked to them about further discussing master planning for the park itself in hopes to help to integrate the site into the park space, but at the same time be able to, create a secure space for our residents.
Right, because certainly you don't want any young children in the street. We'd rather have them being able to use the land behind the school.
Right, and additionally, right now, the front elevation of the building is paved. It's a parking lot. We intend on, you can see in the rendering here, we intend on putting some landscaping in the front of the school to just integrate it better with the street as well.
And hopefully there'll be a plaque in memory of Elias Brookings, that we don't lose the history of the building?
There is the signage that's built into the school itself, that's carved into the front of the school. I'm not sure what additional signage will be there, but we'll certainly be keeping the facade.
Thank you.
Councilor Allen.
Thanks, Mr. President. Just thanks to, is it Amy?
Yes.
And Tom Matthews and Tom Kegelman to bring this quality housing, the work you've done in other parts of the city, to bring it there is a huge plus for our city. So thank you very much, all of you. Thanks.
Councilor Hurst.
Just quickly, what is Home City's commitment to hiring Springfield residents with respect to the development process, as well as minorities and veterans, et cetera?
Our current project,
Sir, if you, can you step into to the microphone so the people at home can hear you?
not sure Amy knows, she's only been with us for 6 weeks, so this current project that we're doing up at the Mason Square area in the Bay Area neighborhood, there is a contractor who has been, in my experience, one of the most aggressive in hiring locally and hiring minorities. We're well over 30%, which has not always been possible in my experience. And we have hired 8 different young folks from the community into the staff, starting as laborers and sometimes carpenters and skilled crafts. So we've been working very hard. It's usually in the weekly construction meetings a common complaint of mine. What are we doing? You know, we had said originally if they could hit 6, we'd be happy. They're up to 8. We're looking for more, and their office is open. They're taking applications anytime. If you know somebody, 437 Bay, they're taking applications. We're always looking for more people. And we have several contractors from the community who are working there. It is a major part of our commitment to the city.
Councilor Gomez.
For a point of information, I am on the board of directors. I'm not voting, but I just wanted to clarify something, if possible, because they were talking about the park that wraps around this property. And I think a little while back, if you guys remember, we voted on the the park and that street that's supposed to remember that street, Central Street, supposed to unite with Hickory, and we did some land takings on the corner. We had the gentleman that they took his house that's on that one way. Right. And Hickory, it's still Hickory? Okay, so that extension of Hickory, just for a point of information, we also voted in the, voted the park, the planning of the park, right?
No.
No?
It hasn't come before us yet.
We haven't done that yet? So what did we look at? I'm just curious. 'Cause I remember seeing a park.
Brookings School itself actually kind of sits on a plateau, and there's a misconception about, because it's adjoins park land, that it is part of the park, but it in fact is not. There is plan, or I believe funding, or the plan was from Pat Sullivan to have a comprehensive redevelopment of the Ruth Elizabeth Park, which is the name of the park. That park abuts the one-way section of Hickory Street. We have voted for the land takings necessary for a sliver of that would allow that one-way section to be widened and for sidewalks to be put on either side, including a bike lane. That is on the absolute opposite side of where this Brookings School, in fact, is of the park. And any future development of the park will now be done in conjunction with the plans for the redevelopment, along with the Pat Sullivan's plans. So, but we haven't had a chance to see those plans yet. And in fact, Pat Sullivan has asked and met with the neighborhood council and asked us in the neighborhood for our thoughts and ideals about what should the plans include in the future for the park. When that opportunity was afforded us, and it still is on the table for us to do that, we had not at that time approved or had contemplation of Home City redoing the building. But now that is, well, hopefully tonight that will be the case. And then once that word spreads in the neighborhood, people will be able to take in consideration the number of apartment units that will be on site. Now, what you may also be anticipating is there's a future plan, I believe, Mr. Signoli will be unveiling about the creation of a roundabout at Six Corners, which is right at the corner. Okay, yeah, no, and then, well, there's three sections. This is the park. You have the park, which is this discussion in conjunction with Home City's plans for the apartments. You will be having more discussions about the roundabout, which is not a rotary, right?
Not a rotary.
It's a roundabout. And finally, you will also hear more about the realignment of Central Street, which will possibility of taking by eminent domain Kevin's Auto Body, which would realign Central Street directly into Hickory Street. That's correct. That's the third leg of that wheel.
Correct.
Any other questions from the council? I assume this will be before us at some point for a zone change? Or is it zoned appropriately?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Is this coming before us for a zone change eventually?
It'll be, yes.
Thank you. All those in favor of suspension of Rule 19 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
On approving the transfer, Councilor Edwards. Yes. Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Rook.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Gomez abstained. Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Marcus Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ash.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Twiggs absent. Councilor Shea.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Abstain.
Abstained. Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Bud Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ramos.
Yes. More than sufficient. Order is approved.
Item number 26 is a order for a budget transfer within the Comptroller's Department. I apologize. In the amount of $43,000.
President, motion to move the question.
So motion.
Second.
Second.
Motion to move the question, seconded by Councilor Ash. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All those in favor of suspension of Rule 19 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Roll call.
On approving the transfer, Councilor Edwards. Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Rook.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Gomez. Yes, Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Marcus Williams. Yes, Councilor Ash.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Twiggs absent. Councilor Shea.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Bud Williams. Absent. Councilor Ramos.
Yes. More than sufficient. Order is approved.
Item number 27 is a budget transfer within the Law Department of $34,000.
Motion to move the question.
Second.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Fenton, seconded by Councilor Edwards. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All those in favor of suspension of Rule 19 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
On approving the transfer, Councilor Edwards. Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Rook.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Gomez. Yes, Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Marcus Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ash.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Twiggs absent. Councilor Shea.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Bud Williams absent. Councilor Ramos.
Yes. More than sufficient. Order is approved.
Item number 28 is an order to transfer unexpended bond funds to Chestnut Middle School.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's a small balance in the Catherine Street bond order that we took at the Early Education Center, about $58,000, and there's a deficit in the account for the Chestnut Middle School when we did the work there of about $58,000. So we're just asking to take the bond proceeds from the Catherine Street and put it towards the deficit in the Chestnut project.
Any questions from the council? All those in favor of suspension of Rule 19 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
On approving the transfer, Councilor Edwards. Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Rook. Yes, Councilor Gomez. Yes, Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Marcus Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ash.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Twiggs absent. Councilor Shea.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Bud Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ramos.
Yes. More than sufficient. Order is approved.
Item number 29 is the mobile food truck ordinance. This ordinance was passed second and third steps at the last City Council regular meeting. Councilor Rook asks that this item be reconsidered, so it is back before the body for second and third reading.
Councilor Williams?
Thank you, Mr. President. Since the last meeting, I just wanted to state that a subcommittee meeting had been scheduled for the mobile food truck ordinance, but that invitation was extended to Attorney Rook as well as Bill Shields, who has some vested interest in the property surrounding where the mobile food trucks will lay. Since that, Attorney Rook and his client had actually canceled the meeting, which would have allowed them the opportunity to speak with DPW, Mr. Signoli, as well as the other city departments who would have been available. They canceled the meeting, but I, on my own accord, met with Bill Shields. State Rep Carlos Gonzalez was present, since that's his district, as well as Denise, who left, quite sure she was tired. But since then, we toured the area where Liability Street, where the food trucks would be placed at Liability Street. And of course, they shared some of their concerns with me. But the general feeling after that meeting took place was to allow for passage of the mobile food truck ordinance. And then after that passage, additional subcommittee meetings would be held to discuss the rollout of that, where they would like to have a seat at the table. So without further ado, I would really urge the body, and I mean, it's been a really long process. It's been an 8-year stalemate. I'd really like to see it end tonight. And as we pass this, which of course has a provisionary measure that states that we can, after 1 year, review what is and what's not working. So I know Councilor Rook and Councilor Ash voted against, there were the 2 no's for that night, but I did do my due diligence and spoke to the appropriate parties that had the concerns, and I'd really like to see that pass. So.
Can we call the question?
Motion made by Councilor Edwards, seconded by Councilor Walsh. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. This requires second and third step. Under Rule 22C, if we invoke Rule 22C, we'll be able to take one single vote to pass the ordinance. All those in favor of invoking Rule 22C, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
On ordaining the mobile food truck ordinance, Councilor Edwards. Yes. Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Rook.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Gomez.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Bud Williams. I'm sorry, Marcus Williams.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Ash.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Twiggs, absent Councilor Shea.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Bud Williams. Yes, Councilor Ramos.
Yes. More than sufficient. Ordinance is approved.
Mr. President,
councilors.
I just want to thank Jay Latore for staying here all night until almost 10:30 at night. He's not a paid city employee. And Chris Signoli and Marcus and everybody else for putting the time in to make this work.
You're a volunteer.
I don't want to get a phone call for a year.
I want a hot dog right now.
Item number 30, Mr. Clerk.
Item number 30 is the air pollution ordinance sponsored by Councilor Edwards. This item is before the body for second and third step.
You got to get an extra 1.5.
Report and an invitation be extended to the chair of the Public Health Committee, which is Helen Halton, for her comment and review. After that committee meeting, then I will bring it back to second and third, hopefully with her support.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Edwards to send the matter to the Health and Human Services Committee, chaired by Councilor Rook, seconded by Councilor Walsh. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Item number 31 is an ordinance entitled Article 390, the Taxi and Livery Regulations.
Many of you may not be aware that I advise the City Council, but I'm also a taxi and livery commissioner. In doing that for the past almost year now, what the commissioners have noticed is that we can give consideration to people that have been offense-free for sexual assault and for violent crimes for 5 years consideration under our rules. But we can't give consideration to people that have a license revocation or a license suspension due to fees or fines that they left unpaid. We feel like it's unfair. So we'd like to amend the ordinance so that we have consideration, we can give consideration to individuals that have had a suspension or a revocation for a fine or a fee. And we also, while we were bringing that forward to the council, we'd like to incorporate the new TNC, which is Transportation Network Company laws that were passed by the state in August of 2016. We, as a municipality, cannot license and we can't impose taxes on them, but we do have authority over our traffic flow and our traffic patterns, and we just like to incorporate the definition to make people aware that the regulations are out there and they should look to the state to be licensed.
Councilor Hurst.
I just want to remind the council that Councilor Allen and myself with the General Government Committee approved this particular issue to come out of subcommittee, and we approved it favorably. So,
Councilor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. President. So will this be just like a blanket or will it be like a case-by-case?
Oh, definitely a case-by-case basis.
Case-by-case,
Yes.
okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Seeing none, all those in favor of first step say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Is there any further business before the council?
No further business for this body.
The next regular meeting is scheduled for June 19th. However, we do have a budget final vote scheduled for Wednesday, June 14th. Thank you.